Now we're good.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to the Thursday, December 12th, 2024 meeting of the Bellingham Planning Board. Before we start, I'd like to ask Nick to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So there are some seats down front or in the second row if you want to sit down. We have a rather robust agenda this evening. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order. We have a couple of requests for continuances. The first is a continuation of a public hearing for 57 Mendon Street to be continued to January 9th. Say for the first time, 2025.
Yep. Yeah.
We need to change any dates.
No, we have the extension to the end of January, so January 9th is when they're continuing, so we're all set for that one.
Okay,
Have we received any concerns from the neighbors on that?
I actually just talked with the neighbor. I don't really want to get into it because they've requested continuance, but yes, there has been coordination between, first of all, myself and the neighbors, and then myself and the applicant, so
Anything we should be concerned about?
no.
Thank you.
I would entertain a motion,
So we'll
entertain a second.
second,
The floor has been seconded to continue the development plan at 57 Mendon Street to January 9th, 2025. I'd like to call for the roll, but also use it as attendance.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill O'Connell, aye.
Bill, I.
Steve, I.
That motion passes unanimously. We also have a continuation for what we call 0 Maple Street. On the assessors map, it's lot 37, lots 3 and 3A. Rob, you want anything you?
So this is a continuance for, there's a few items in front of us: development plan, scenic road, and special permit. So they're continuing or requesting a continuance to January 9th. And the deadline or the decision deadline was extended to the end of February for that one.
I'll move to continue the hearing to Wednesday.
And entertain a second.
To January 9th.
We have a second on the floor to continue it to January 9th. Any discussion? I'd like to call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, aye.
Bill, I.
Steve, I.
That motion passes unanimously. Attached to that is a continuation for the scenic road special permit for 0 Maple Street. Same concerns as before. I would entertain a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Phil.
We have a motion that has been seconded to continue it to January 9th. Any discussion? I would call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, aye.
Bill, I.
Steve, I.
That motion passes unanimously. Now we're gonna get back onto the agenda. First item on the agenda this evening is the public meeting for a preliminary subdivision plan for 180 Main Street. Rob, can you bring us up to date and explain to the audience what is a preliminary subdivision plan?
Sure. So the applicant's here to give a presentation on exactly what they're presenting, but essentially, just so the public is aware of what the preliminary subdivision plan is, this is really just the preliminary process in a public forum to discuss something that an applicant, in this case, New England Country Club Holdings, would like to propose at a later date. So the preliminary subdivision plan in front of us It is for a proposed roadway and I think it's a 6-lot subdivision with access from Payne Street. And just so everybody is aware, so this is just a preliminary discussion for the applicant to give some preliminary proposal. The board can offer comments, staff can offer comments, and the public can offer comments as well. For the preliminary subdivision, there is no approval that will allow this to be built. All this is just to acknowledge that the applicant has gone through the process of going through a public hearing to discuss this with the public. But there's no approval to build this tonight. That's not what this is for. So with the preliminary subdivision, the board can either approve it, approve with conditions, or deny it. And I will just reiterate that the approval is not to approve that this is going to be built. It is simply to acknowledge that the applicant has gone through the process of the preliminary subdivision plan, had an open meeting, received input from the public, received input from the board, and any town staff that may want to comment as well. With that, Mr. Chair, I would recommend now the applicant, if they want to present. After that, I have some items that I would like to just bring to the board's attention, just items that if there were an approval with conditions, I would recommend that these be included as the conditions. And then if you have questions, comments, concerns, then I would open it up to the public.
Okay, we're gonna need to have the, want this read and to take a motion, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I guess probably should have opened it first before I just went on that long
Steve?
spiel.
The applicant NECC Holdings LLC propose a preliminary subdivision inclusive of the parcels identified as 180 Payne Street, Assessors Map 95, Parcel 37, Map 95, Parcel 37-1, Map 96, Parcel 62A, Map 97, Parcel 15C, Map 97, Parcel 19, and having an approximate cumulative area of 338.5 plus or minus acres. The preliminary subdivision includes 6 lots and approximately 1,055 feet of roadway. The plans were prepared by Bowler Engineering, Southborough, Mass. 01772.
Thank you very much. We need to have a motion to open the public hearing.
I move to open the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second, Nick.
We have a motion on the floor that has been seconded to open the public hearing for 180, for the preliminary subdivision for 180 Payne Street. I'll call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, aye.
Bill, I.
Steve, aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Gentlemen, you want to introduce yourselves to the audience, and the floor is yours.
Good evening. For the record, John Cusick with Bowler Engineering. With me is Mark Callahan with the development team. Nice to see you all again. Appreciate you hearing us tonight. I know you have a full agenda, so I'll be very brief. We'll get into any additional detail that you would like me to do. As Rob very eloquently mentioned, this is a preliminary subdivision and it's very high level. The purpose for why we are here, we just frankly want to lock in the zoning before we embark on a development plan moving forward. And that's really it. So with that, we submitted a subdivision plan. And if I can share my screen, I will run through that with you. So everyone is certainly. So everyone's familiar with the property. It is the New England Country Club property. It's about 335 acres. Currently holds the golf course on site. We are here before you for a preliminary plan for the small roadway subdivision, which you can see in the front here. It's kind of hard to see, but right along Payne Street is we were proposing the roadway on that first sheet. I will zoom up to the more detailed plans. Again, that's the property in here. That is the subdivision. The roadway's approximately 1,000 feet. It just does a horseshoe. This is a blow up of the site plan itself. It starts at the intersection with Payne Street, north of the existing entrance. The existing entrance is right here. So right about here, we propose to carve in a new entrance. The road will come along for 1,000 feet and intersect the existing driveway that's right here. So again, it's about 1,000 feet. The next sheet, the topography on the site is such that, this is the high portion of the site for those that are familiar with it. Everything slopes down to the river down this way, so this is the low portion of the site. So you'll notice we just have a constant grade from the top to the bottom, heading all the way through. Again, this is a preliminary plan. We just wanted to throw something on paper. It will get defined as we move forward through a real definitive subdivision process that we'll need to do, as well as the development plan on the property, which we're not at a point where we're ready to do that yet, but it's just starting the process. So from a high level, we envision just a grade from the top here, coming down in that direction. We have some stormwater features from catch basins and piping. We envision there could be a detention basin located here. Again, for the purpose of this plan set, that hasn't been sized or anything. It's just a location for what we think might happen. And eventually we'll carve up the parcels. Right now, we just show a 6-lot subdivision that is very arbitrary. That will change. Don't think too much into how the lots were carved. It was really just drawing lines on paper. So with that, before I go, that we actually did, thinking forward, we do have a few waivers we think that would make sense as part of this, and we can develop that as you get into everything further. But based on the topography, it's about 50 feet of grade change from here at the intersection right over here to where it meets Payne Street. So this small section of road is about 9.5%. The subdivision regulations for a public roadway are 8%. So we are exceeding that. We think it makes sense to do that. If you don't like that waiver and we move forward, we essentially just need to make a longer road and cut down some additional trees and take up some additional area to do that. So we could comply. We just don't think it makes sense. We're just getting that out there now. The other items we're requesting or think we'll need waivers for eventually is your regulations require a sidewalk along the property's frontage with Payne Street. The sidewalk is on the opposite side of Payne Street, not ours. So it'd be just weird having a small section of sidewalk there. So we didn't think that made sense to do. And then within the development itself on the roadway, we would have a sidewalk on the development side. We don't think it makes sense to put it on the opposite side since there's nothing there. So we can certainly work through those all later at the definitive stage, but just wanted to call that out. Those are things that we thought would make sense when we get to it.
Okay,
And with that, I'm happy to go into more detail or answer.
I don't have a lot of questions as was articulated before. This is simply procedure.
Right.
And for those people in the audience. Any questions?
Have any questions? I would just state that now and in the future, Payne Street is a concern. It's a fast road. There's a lot of through traffic. So it's definitely something we'll be looking at and getting some opinions from public safety.
Absolutely.
No, I don't have any questions other than, do you envision this road to be part of an actual plan that you're looking to have constructed?
I think so, until we actually file something, don't know, but some thought went into that, so I can envision that road being close to this. But until we, are ready to work through some engineering details and figure out what the ultimate plan would like to present to this board is, premature for me to say that, but I do feel like it could be something similar to this.
And what's your time frame to submit something substantive?
Depends if you ask him or me, but it's probably 2 to 3 months if I had to give you a ballpark. That we've got some work to do.
Thank you.
So, picking up on what Brian said, you may want to incorporate this into your long range terms. Plans, okay?
Yep.
Also, as, Nick outlined, and I'm sure the, police and fire chief will address it. Main Street is a concern. With the speed of vehicles, the post and the curve. It's just a concern, but right now, based on the, procedural nature of this, that's the only comment I have.
I was up and down Payne Street twice today. So certain traffic will come up. Curious why moving the driveway from its current spot. I understand there's, if this is what you thought was more realistic. What was the impetus to try to move that from where the existing one was?
So I think this doesn't actually propose to move it, it actually adds to it.
It adds to it.
Correct.
So it's gonna be at the existing location and the loop.
That's what the plan
That's what the
currently
plan
shows
is
now,
currently
and we need
showing,
to
yeah.
work that through.
This, I'd just like to hear some of Rob's comments.
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay, before you up in the public, I would like to hear, oh, yes, Rob.
Yeah, so just before, because
Certainly.
I think some of these comments, I think echo what the board is saying, plus some additional things, just some information for everybody to realize. So I have 5 comments that I would recommend eventually, if you decide to approve this with conditions, I would implement these as the conditions, but number 1 is Payne Street is a busy road with multiple existing safety issues, including alignment, speed, and sight distances. The applicant has begun discussions with public safety staff regarding access design and off-site improvements to provide safe access and egress to the site. It is recommended that the applicant continues coordinating safety aspects of the site with town staff. That's 1. 2, an existing drainage issue located at 91 Payne Street is caused by stormwater runoff from Payne Street and wetland tributaries located on the NECC property. When looking at Payne Street access improvements, analysis and improvements shall be considered for this area. Coordination with town staff is recommended. That's 2. 3, an ANRAD application is currently under review by the Conservation Commission to determine limits of wetland resource areas on site. Once the applicant has determined limits of disturbance, it is recommended that the applicant coordinate permitting with the Bellingham Conservation Agent prior to filing an application. That's 3. 4, soil testing for stormwater management structures shall be conducted prior to filing a definitive subdivision application or development plan review application. And the last one, number 5, utility capacity and access shall be coordinated with the Department of Public Works and implemented in any future site design. That is what I have.
Okay, I feel very comfortable with all of them.
So
Before we open to the public, and we'll do that in a minute, I'd like to hear from the police and fire department.
So, what we've looked at obviously is for what the applicant, I think, is considering down the road, a much larger project than a 6-unit subdivision. So, we met on November 17th with the applicant. I requested a copy of the traffic study that was already completed at that point. Took them 3 weeks to provide that to me. Finally got it this week, so was able to look at it before this meeting. Traffic study supports that there's a major problem with the speed on Payne Street, so Payne Street's gonna need substantial mitigation for the ultimate scope of this project, not a 6-unit subdivision, but where this thing is probably headed. And aside from that, I think there's a separate concern with public safety, with the amount of population that this project will potentially, if all fully permitted for what has been talked about, comes to fruition. It's gonna be a substantial challenge for public safety, just based on the amount of people that are gonna be population growth of the town that we're not staffed for. So that's a long-term concern, as this thing might get permitted down the road for their full capacity, but the short-term concern for us, the immediate concern, is obviously mitigating traffic issues on Payne Street that are gonna be a challenge to mitigate.
Chief, thank you.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
I
Floor
think
is
you,
yours.
What's that? Yeah, I think Chief Fitzgerald summed it up nicely. Both police and fire are working collectively together with the developer and expressing our concerns. They know our concerns, and it's something we're going to watch very closely. So
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. What I would like to do now is open it to the public. I know a lot of you are maybe here for that this evening. What I'd like to do is, try not to have the same question asked more than twice. And, after questions asked, we'll ask for your majority, share the opinion, and we'll move on. I know there'll be a lot of questions. But again, this is in essence procedural in nature. This is the first time this board has seen it. So, you know, we are reacting as well as you. But this is what we're reacting to, what is presented to us this evening. So I will open up to the public.
Is there a pass around microphone, just so that people who are hard of hearing, can access the meeting?
I do not know.
Yeah, we don't, like, you're talking about in the room?
In the room.
Yeah, we-
It's very difficult to hear people that are facing that way. So if you're speaking to the public, we should be able to hear and understand the meeting.
Yeah, we do not have, we're not set up with any microphone, but we'll try to speak as loud as we can.
I don't think that'll be the last question, but I need another question. Gentleman in the back.
My name's Hagar Chin. I live on Gaby Lane. I've been a resident since 1976. Grew up in Bellingham. Changed a lot. And what they're proposing, I could care less. More power to them. I'm a carpenter. I work in development. I think it's progress. But I don't think a lot of people here realize the end game. Because when you look at that proposal, right, lot one, now they're talking about a 6-lot subdivision, but when you break it down, the lots that are on there, lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Lot 4 is unbuildable. Lot 3 is unbuildable. Lot 5 is unbuildable. Lot 6 is unbuildable. That leaves 3 lots. 1, 2, and
3 is unbuildable. 3 is unbuildable.
okay, so the main lots are 1 and 2. Lot 1 is like 9.7 million square feet. Lot 2 is like 4.8 million square feet. If you,
Entirety of the golf course.
if you look, basically, and I've walked the golf course, when you walk it, you see how pristine that land is, and you wonder how it's been able to be kept that pristine all this time when every part of Bellingham has been developed. So for the people, the town folk that really care about this, I want them to know that on that proposal, it says that you're allowed 8 units per acre. And lot 1 has about 210 acres. That means lot 1 is allowed to have, what's 8 times 210? 1,600 units. Lot 2 is 120 acres, which at 8 units per acre is 900 units. So you're talking about 2,500 units that will be allowed by that proposal. It says it right on it. Just look at all the graphs. Just look at the table. 2,500 units. Now it says something about an over 55 community. Okay, whatever. But 2,500 units. That's what that's the end game. Not the 6 units they're talking about now. 2,500 units. They know about it. They're just not talking about it because they're not allowed to. They know about it, but they're not telling you because you voted down. They know their end game. There's a lot of money to be made. They know what's going on. They're not allowed to talk about it, but you need to know what's going on. And take a good look at those plans, because on those plans, it says they're allowed 2,500 units. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
I
Yes.
just have a concern, I mean, just building off of what he said, if there's 2,500 units.
Again, ma'am, we are here just for the preliminary subdivision, but go ahead.
2,500 units, is it going to be an over 55? What's going there and how will the town be able to support that additional population, including the schools? Okay, and the other thing that I want to talk about is the entrance, that's not the driveway entrance, the entrance, on the other side of Payne Street. There is a flooding issue there, and there's a line of sight issue there.
South of the golf course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a line of sight issue there. You cannot see the cars that are coming in the other direction there. So anybody trying to pull out of that roadway? There's a line of sight issue there. So I know you've already, kind of, yep, talked about that. Yeah.
Appreciate, the comment.
Sorry, I have a third thing to say.
That's fine.
I live in this condo right here, so. I see it looks like a water study and this lot directly behind my house is unbuildable. Is that like a forever thing or is that just until you can change it to be buildable? The wetlands. Yeah, the wetlands.
So your question is that not buildable because of the wetland resource area? So that's gonna be protected by the Wetland Protection Act, so you're not really gonna be able to disturb that. So that would be permanent protection.
Gentlemen in the back row.
Oh, the Wetland Protection Act, can you just give them a brief rundown on what that protects, how it's determined it's a wetland?
Sure, so the Wetlands Protection Act, it applies to bordering vegetated wetlands, riverfront areas, really just your wetland resource areas. And what the applicant is doing, that's gonna be governed by the Conservation Commission, not necessarily this board. There's a little bit of overlap because typically the planning board will look at stormwater related items and there's certain performance standards that must be met if you're going to, basically you have to infiltrate the water, treat it before it goes anywhere, and retain water to make sure that you don't increase stormwater runoff to, off your site and to wetlands. So essentially, that's a Conservation Commission issue mostly. And the applicant currently is going through, it's an ANRAD process, which is abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Delineation. That is to basically certify the limits of the wetlands on site. It's a massive site, 353, I think, plus or minus acres. So it's gonna take some time for them to actually delineate and get that reviewed and approved. That's currently in front of conservation right now. And then what will happen is the way that Wetlands Protection Act works, if you're doing work within 100 feet of the wetlands, you're required to file a permit with the Bellingham Conservation Commission. And just so everybody's aware, regarding this preliminary application and future applications, whether they be in front of the planning board or the Conservation Commission, similar to how everybody was notified tonight for this, because it's within 300 feet of the property line. When a new application after this comes in front of the planning board, and when the notice of intent were to go in front of the Conservation Commission, everybody's gonna get notified again. So it's not like this meeting happens and then we just start having meetings afterwards. Everybody gets notified through the process because it all has to be conducted in an open meeting such as this. Hopefully that clarifies if that was a little too long-winded.
Well, the reason why I asked, I brought that question up was because, so what's classified as wetlands now is always gonna be wetlands, or because in my experience, an area that's a wetland now because of storm runoff or water runoff can become dry land if you grade it correctly nearby. So that wetland could be dry land in about 2 years and no longer is it wetlands and now it's buildable. Is that the case?
So that's a fair question, but the thing is that even if it's a wetlands that is holding water, if it runs dry, it's all based on plants and soils in Massachusetts. So it's not simply, okay, if it was holding water, it's, no longer a wetlands because it's dry. It's all based on the plants and soils. So it's a little bit more involved, and that's to kind of help protect against if there was a stormwater issue.
But when it's dry, there's no longer those plants in that same soil that you'll use to classify it as wetland. They could, they're gonna be building a roadway and they could grade it, so the water doesn't go to that wetland anymore. And now no longer is that soil the same or those plants growing there, now it's dry land.
So, in order to meet the stormwater regulations in Massachusetts, you're looking at pre-development and post-development standards. So pre-development, you're gonna have design points of where the water is draining. You cannot increase water off your site, but you are gonna have to look at and model where the runoff is going. So to your point, you make a really good point about, well, what, are you gonna create wetlands or are you gonna ruin wetlands?
You could create wetland somewhere else and make something else more dry.
Well, like,
And still
I don't wanna go
engineer can do
too
that
far
for
into it
backup.
because, yeah, I don't wanna go too far into it because there's a lot of layers to the stormwater regulations and how they relate to the Wetlands Protection Act, but basically you're modeling pre-development and post-development, and part of the process with this ANRAD is to make sure that prior to any development, those wetland lines are certified, so we know exactly where they are. So I don't want to snowball this. They're very good questions.
I only bring it up to point out the fact that to some of these other people that don't understand building, you can make wetland dry.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you explain how these 6 lots were subdivided the way that they were? It seems, I agree with the first gentleman, that this small lot obviously is a Trojan horse into the larger 2 lots that you made, but lot 6, for example, on Rentham Road is a small lot that you deem non-buildable. Can you go into some more detail about those?
Through the chair, as I mentioned in the presentation, it was 100% arbitrary. There was no thought process behind those lots. Because again, we will move forward with a future development, which will dictate where ultimate lot lines go. We were just putting something really on paper to start the process. So as I mentioned, just to be completely forthright, the lot lines they're arbitrary. They're really no thought went into the.
I mean,
lot
then
lines.
what is the point of doing this at all? If this is just arbitrary, what's the point? I guess I'm missing something.
It's a requirement to have to show it, to file the plan.
Before you walk
There's
in,
a put behind it, if
You spend money on the
four of
plants.
6 lots are deemed unbuildable. Well, I mean, what was that thought process?
Through the chair. Okay. Again, it was completely arbitrary. I don't know how to say that, really any differently than being completely forthright. We wanted to show a potential roadway where it might be and just throw something to start that process. To do a subdivision, preliminary subdivision, you have to subdivide the land. You can't just show the roadway. You have to show some property division. So it's really just dividing lines to take up the entirety of the property. I will assure you, those lines will be completely different when we get to the definitive process and we really know more about the ultimate development, where it goes once we work through all of the details and refine plans to get in front of the board for the next phase. But the lot lines truly mean nothing as part of this process goes.
So what I'm hearing, sorry, so what I'm
Excuse me,
hearing
one moment.
here.
Go ahead, Nick.
So what I'm hearing here is that, we're looking at these plans and we're saying that 4 of these 6 lots are unbuildable, but that really isn't the case. Ultimately, there'll be a different plan and maybe they will be buildable. If all this is arbitrary and there was no thought, you just need to put lines on paper.
Again, through the chair, I would not look into the lot division and what's buildable or not buildable. What's buildable and not buildable will really be dictated through permitting through the Concom, permitting through the planning board, and ultimately where the project goes. Those lots are purely just shown to divide the property, which is needed to do as part of this process. It's not binding. We still need to go through a second process, which would actually show some lot lines that are more definitive under the definitive plan. It's not trying to be sneaky. I'm trying to be very, very honest. Those lot lines really mean nothing.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any thought that the development would have road frontage or access onto Rentham Road?
So through the chair, right now, we're just looking at the subdivision that shows a proposed road off of Payne Street. When we come in for a future development plan that shows the development of the parcel, there will be more development than what is shown just here. At which point, once we finalize a plan to submit, there could be connections elsewhere.
You can see how that would be a little misleading when the plan that's been submitted shows the access on Rentham Road being a lot that's not buildable, leading people to think that perhaps there would be no access from Rentham Road, but now we're being told that that was arbitrary.
I understand.
That's a
And to
concern.
the gentleman in the front where they came in a little bit late, we talked about the fact, and Rob, can you articulate, this is procedural. What we're going through this evening.
Well, yeah, I mean, the preliminary subdivision process is just to get input from board staff and the public on, you know, what is proposed, which, right, what we're seeing here is the access onto Payne Street. So, you know, as the applicant mentioned, it sounds like, and I think everybody is aware that there's probably going to be a different development than what we see here. Really the main purpose of tonight, or really that what we can comment on as the board, is what's in front of us, which is access onto Payne Street. I guess that's.
That's it, we, you know, we need to talk about what's in front of us. I know someone used the word Trojan horse. I appreciate all the work you've done in analyzing what would happen with the square footage. But tonight, our concern primarily, and the fire department and the police department narrowed their scope down, was to the access off of Payne Street for what's presented in front of us. Again, I'll reference the fact, we've heard the term Trojan horse used before, but right now, we are just looking at what is in front of us this evening. And our biggest concern is, Payne Street. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to know, ultimately, you know, what is the scope or the potential scope of this project? I mean, ultimately, how many units could potentially be built here? Is there?
Rob, you want to address that?
Yeah, so what was alluded to by the gentleman in the back, so back in 2017, for my time here, there was an overlay that was approved at town meeting to allow for this 55+ active adult overlay. From what I understand, the intent of the overlay was to protect the golf course from being developed, but to allow a developer, if they did want to utilize the land, to allow more dense housing around the golf course. That's the long and short of it. So there is the density that allows, I think it's 8 units per acre. The one thing to realize too is that with our regulations, that there is a minimum lot area requirement, which does not include wetland area in that calc. So that's also where the ANRAD kind of comes in and where that needs to get tied into this whole project. So with that, there's really no telling how much density is going to be allowed for this until that gets figured out. But that's essentially what that overlay is. Otherwise, this is all zoned agricultural, so then you would only be able to do 2-acre lots through a subdivision process, which is obviously a lot less lots. So that's my understanding, is that is what the applicant eventually is going to try to utilize, is that overlay district. And I think somebody asked, is it good, does it have to be a 55+ community? And the answer is yes. In order to meet the zoning requirements, it has to be a 55+ community. And my understanding of that back in 2017 was that was to help hinder the stress on the school system. So that is, hopefully that gives everybody some information on kind of where this comes from. I wasn't involved with the process in 2017. I've been here since April of this year in this position. I've lived in Bellingham my whole life, but that is,
Rob, can you go through the preliminary piece of it as far as what happens after that? If they were to go forward and go through and do an actual subdivision plan, and what would happen at that point?
sure,
Process point of view, because I think that would,
yeah,
they put something on paper here, which they're really not gonna build. I think they've admitted that. They've started a process which is zoning related, I believe.
Yep.
To keep the zoning,
Freeze the zone.
freeze the zoning basically, which is, I believe. I don't wanna go too far down that path because that would be speculating, but can you go through what happens tonight after the preliminary gets voted on with what we have here? What the process after that would look like, depending upon what actually gets submitted.
sure.
Thank you. It's educational though.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
absolutely.
this is
So-
education.
So as I mentioned, the preliminary subdivision process, this is really just a preliminary discussion in an open meeting. I imagine are taking notes, some comments here. What happens after this, if this gets approved with the conditions as I recommended, they go back to the drawing board and they can do multiple things. They could take this plan and turn it into a definitive subdivision plan. They could come back with a development plan. They have many options what they can do. There's different application avenues. What will happen is regardless, everybody is gonna get notified again when they come back with the definitive plan in front of us. Now, with that, we do always recommend to the applicant, because I know that there's a lot of people, there's a lot of abutters. There's actually, 4 towns involved in the notification for this? We always recommend that the applicant have a neighborhood meeting, especially with something that we expect is gonna be a higher density. And I would recommend that the applicant do that sooner rather than later, because I understand people are concerned with what exactly is going to be the final application here, which is completely valid. It would be better, I think, if everybody was aware before the plan is actually submitted, a formal application. With that, they're also gonna continue, I hope they're gonna continue coordinating with us town staff as a pre-application process before a formal application is submitted. Hopefully that answers your question. So basically, after this, they can go for a definitive subdivision plan, which might look like this, might look like something else, which it probably will, or you don't even have to elect to do the definitive subdivision plan. You might just go for something called the development plan approval, which is basically looking at stormwater, traffic. There's all these different items that have to be looked at for performance standards. The other item too to note is that this is subject as a special permit with the planning board. So that's the other item too. So there's specific approval criteria that they have to meet the special permit criteria and get an approval from the planning board. If they go with the overlay, which I assume is what's going to happen.
But in general, what they're looking to do is get the zoning tied down tonight.
Correct.
And then there's gonna be a vote on this plan, which input is given, which has been read.
Yeah.
And then they'll start another process, which which all the neighbors will get notified. They'll be probably in front of the Conservation Committee because of the vegetation out there and all those discussions. They're gonna be probably in front of us in one way or another with this, with the definitive subdivision, and that's when they'll have the streets, the houses, all of the stormwater will have to be looked at,
Density.
the density, and that's when things really start. This is more of a freeze the zone type of thing, so concerning, yes. I think a lot of the comments you've heard from our chiefs, that their eyes are wide open, I'll say it that way. And I believe this board's eyes are wide open too, so, I'll leave that as my comment.
Thank you.
Hi, I live at the top of Payne Street.
Just, your name and address?
Oh, Pamela Anger, 202 Payne Street, and we live at the top of the hill. I cannot even imagine this being down there. The traffic is gonna be horrendous. I can't even imagine how this could work. That's it.
Thank you, and we've articulated that
Yeah.
in our comments. Just want to pick up on something Phil said. If and when this moves forward, the discussions are gonna be rather robust and lengthy. It'll be a long process. The process will need your input. As Rob said, you'll be notified. You want to watch future agendas when the meetings are, because we value your input. And you're the neighbors, and we want to hear what you have to say. So regardless of what happens tonight, and again, I'm gonna use the word again for the third time it's so unused. I apologize for stealing your term. You know, this could be perceived as being a Trojan horse. But right now, what we're looking at is what's in front of us. That's all what we're looking at, and specifically, as you articulated, this board articulated, and the two chiefs articulated, is the concern of traffic on Payne Street. So that is what our job is this evening. And then based on what they do, it delineates where we move going down the road.
So, Mr. Chair, I think there was one more question in the public, but after that, I think we might want to move. We have a hefty
I know.
agenda tonight, so. Yeah.
Was there someone in the back?
No, I think it was.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
Follow-up question for the subdivision that we're looking at. I assume this meets all frontage requirements, the lots that they're creating, there's no exceptions, frontage requirements are all in place for this proposed subdivision, whether or not it finalizes. But before this committee votes on it, these lots that are being requested to be created, they're all already lots.
Correct. So yes and no, because from the dimensional requirements of the buildable lots, yes. However, where we would have to get more information in a definitive subdivision is that there is a requirement in Bellingham that you have to meet the minimum requirements for the lot area, and 90% of that has to be area that's excluded from the Wetland Protection Act. So the two large lots, I think we can assume that if you have more than 2 acres of upland, I'd have to look, and we don't have all of the information for the wetland area shown on these preliminary plans. The good thing is that they are going through that ANRAD process, which will have all the wetlands on site located. So that would have to be looked at once we have something more definitive in front of us.
So I'm just confused how this board can approve this subdivision plan without knowing that these lots are subdividable.
So it's really just a preliminary discussion, like we said. So, you know, they have areas that don't have frontage, or if they do and there's too much wetlands, is non-buildable. So it's all preliminary, and that's where we couldn't approve it to be constructed right now. It's really just to give our preliminary feedback on it, which is why, like, I have the ANRAD comment in here. But that is a very good point. So with that.
One last question.
Yeah, I'm no expert on procedural things, but it just seems like, how can the board vote on anything that is so, you know, not defined? I guess, you know, these gentlemen are up here saying, this isn't really what we're looking to do. and they're asking you to vote on it. I find that kind of odd.
So if I could just add, think of this as just a discussion. This is not an approval of a project. They're submitting something saying, hey, we're gonna start this process. We have to submit something to you. We're gonna submit this. And it's engineering and zoning and all that. This kind of works. Just a discussion. And then Rob has outlined all of these things that we would need to figure out if they were gonna actually submit something to be constructed. So think of this as just a public discussion about this crazy plan. They have no intention of building, no intention. So all of the questions you have are very, very valid. And there's a lot of question marks that have to be answered, and there'll be a lot more question marks once we see an actual plan that they would like to build. And this is a very good discussion. But don't worry about this. This is just a discussion. You know, you keep your eye on the ball and they'll be back. And I assure you, they'll be back within 5 months. And then let's get to the substance of it all. But for now, this is just a conversation.
Again, it's procedural. We're going by what's in front of us. We're not ignorant that there are things behind there. But we're looking at is just this tonight. It's so like a placeholder for them to get things moving.
So,
What's your recommendation to the board if you?
so I would recommend a motion to close the public hearing. And before that, just so everybody's aware, you know, feel free to reach out to the planning office too, if you have questions as this process goes forward. I'm there very frequently, every day, all day, usually all night too. See, so feel free to reach out, as this process moves forward, but I would recommend closing the public hearing. And
Would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So
Do I have a second?
Second,
We have a motion on the floor to close the public hearing, made and seconded. Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, on.
Bill, I.
Steve, I.
The motion passes unanimously.
And I would recommend an approval with conditions based on the condition, those 5 conditions that I stated earlier.
I'm looking for a second. We have a motion on the floor to approve this based on the 5 conditions outlined before and articulated by Rob. Any discussion? Like to call for the vote?
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, I.
Bill, I.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. All right,
Thank you all.
thank you, and thank you to the
For everyone
public.
here, I can't thank you enough for being here. This is gonna be a long process. You'll be notified accordingly. Any questions, feel free to contact any of us. But again, this was just a stakeholder for tonight. To get discussions going, please keep coming to these meetings. Go to the Conservation Committee meetings as well. We value your input and we want your input. And thank you very much for being cooperative.
And everyone's welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but what happens typically is everybody stands up and starts to talk and then goes out in the hall and starts to talk, and we still have to do our meeting. So if you could just leave quietly, and even though you're out there, we can still hear you. So if you could do that, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Happy holidays, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Oh, yeah. We didn't want to hear that. Yeah.
Gentlemen, good luck. Thank you. Good evening.
Yeah, you're up next.
If anyone in the Bob Euchre seats want to move closer, feel free.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nick, how are you?
Long time no see, huh?
The next item on our agenda is a continuation of public hearing. Excuse me, for a special permit for Prospect Hill Village. Rob, can you bring us up to speed on what's going on?
Sure, there's plenty of things. Where do we begin? To be honest with you, I don't even know where we left off last with this one. I guess just to give everyone an update on recent developments. There were a couple peer reviews that were conducted. There was one for the Dupree pump station and Lou's proposed connection to that. Jesse, our DPW director, is online too. That's one of the things. Evening, Jesse. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight.
Yeah. So that's one of the items. We also we received the traffic peer review last Friday. I don't know if anybody has looked at it. That's in your Dropbox. That's another item. I don't know if we necessarily want to go into that too much, because I would recommend that if we have a discussion based on the traffic peer review, we should have the peer review consultant and your consultant here to discuss. And I think because that's a major concern.
I think that's fair.
So that's, those are two bigger items. The other item, I know, Lou, you submitted, I think it was before last meeting, just a memo with an update on your narrative based on the special permit criteria. Thank you for sending that. I followed up with a supplemental memo with just some information that I just thought was relevant, as well as, I mean, I think Lou was pretty spot on with your outlying items that you mentioned. There were a couple more that I just added, like lighting plan and such. So with that, that's the update right now. I guess one other item as well that we've discussed, sorry, this is probably a big one too. We've been talking about the density question for quite some time now, and we did get legal opinion, or I got legal opinion from our town council regarding this interpretation of full lot area and wetland area being included in that, or not being included in that calculation. We know Wall Street Development's stance on the interpretation. My interpretation is different, and legal counsel is in agreement that the wetland area is not included in the calculation. That interpretation should be in your drop boxes as well, so. And I know Lou has it. I don't know, am I missing anything else? Sorry, it's been a long day.
We'll touch base on input from the DPW on the pump station. I think now just turn over to Lou and.
Yeah, I don't know, Lou, what would you like to present tonight?
So as Rob has indicated, we are working to answer questions that have been asked during previous meetings. One question was, is there enough capacity in the sewer pump station on Dupree Street? The answer to the question was yes, there's plenty of capacity. However, that pump station has experienced some difficulties over the last 3 or 4 years. The Kleinfelder, the consultant, the peer reviewer, has indicated that that there is capacity, but he would recommend certain improvements be made. We've asked, well, what kind of improvements are you looking, what are some of the details that would be required? What kind of budget are we, what kind of costs are we talking about? So we haven't received that information, but what we did receive recently was a copy of all of the repairs that have been made since for the last 3 or 4 years that the DPW has provided us. And that amounted to about $118,000 worth of repairs that have been made since the station has been in, or I don't know if it's exactly, I don't know exactly when it went in, but over the last 3 or 4 years, the town has incurred about $118,000 worth of repairs. But we don't know if those repairs would require, I don't even know what a new pump station would cost, but we're trying to figure that out as part of this process. Second thing is, we did receive recently the peer review from the traffic consultant. From my view, and you folks can read it at your leisure, and we're happy to come back with our consultant as well, but our consultant and the peer review have been in touch with each other. There's nothing substantial in that peer review. In fact, I think, you read it, right? There's nothing controversial or prohibitive that is not reconcilable between what we're proposing and what the peer review has suggested. We've also met with the police department, and we've discussed preliminarily the concern over the intersection at Prospect and Lake. And as I've said on many occasions, we think certain things should be done there to improve visibility, sight distance, and safety. We haven't, and the traffic consultant, peer reviewer has suggested the same. The complication is that, the town has within its authority right now to make improvements there. You have a layout that was approved or laid out back in 1935, and the town has done nothing about it. It's complicated for us to do mitigation there. We can do certain mitigation that we've suggested in terms of cutting the grade down and clearing sight distance. But it's a complicated issue because that portion of the area that's closest to the intersection is privately owned. That privately owned portion is owned by the property owner on the opposite side of Lake Street. And in 1986, whoever the predecessor in title was, received a variance so that they could put this road, Lake Street, into a T intersection where it is today. I don't know what was there before, but they allowed that property owner to have a split lot in compliance with the zoning. So he has 66,000 square feet on one side and 18,000 square feet on the other side. And in the middle is the roadway. Now, that variance, if the property owner were agreeable or willing to do it, and we've offered to do it, he could go to the zoning board and ask for a modification to his variance to allow the sale of that 18,000 square feet and still be in compliance with zoning, with the variance requirements. If that were to happen, then we would be a little bit more, have a little bit more options with regard to what we could do with that intersection. It needs larger turning radiuses. It needs the elevation. If you've driven down there when you're driving south on Prospect Street, the elevation goes up, so you cannot see the intersection. But we're perfectly happy trying to do that, but we're limited. And we've made some suggestions of what we can do. And I think the police and fire will share the same opinion that we have. But the town has options, you can modify the variance, you can take the land by eminent domain, and you could build a 1935 layout. All would solve the problem, potentially. So, so that issue is still, we don't have any input from the town as to which way you want us to go. The traffic consultant has suggested that we put something on paper conceptually, but we put together conceptually is not really something that can be performed without, we can do some of it because some of it is owned by the town as part of that 1935 layout, but we can't get to the closest part of the intersection without private party easement or authorization. We also, during this interim period, we also submitted to the fire chief a swept path analysis. I don't know if you folks know it. It's to demonstrate that the fire apparatus is able to maneuver within the development. And I think, there's been some discussion with the chief and with our traffic, consultant relative to some of the questions regarding that issue. But for the most part, I think it's pretty safe to say that we have, provided adequate evidence that the largest fire apparatus can maneuver through the development. Let's talk about density, your favorite subject. Rob, even though we disagree, Rob has asked, and we have submitted a calculation of how much wetland area is on the site. You've asked for that discussion. So we did a calculation, and this is the original. This is our original plan, 156 units with secondary access out to Lake Street and the wetlands outlined here in green. The wetlands total 576,631 square feet. So we're allowed to use 10% of that, so 90% is not usable. So basically reduces it down to 518,000 some odd square feet. What that does is it reduces the number of bedrooms by 52 bedrooms, I believe. 58 bedrooms. So, which are equivalent to 29 units. So we've we've prepared a conceptual plan showing a reduction in the project from 156 to 129.
Is this the one that you just sent to me,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, can you load it up on the thing?
you mind if I show this so
I
that,
was gonna say something.
yeah.
I had handouts, but I forgot. So, sorry.
So as we move forward in your presentations, if it's possible to so you can bring stuff like this moving forward.
Yeah, I mean,
Would
we've
be
got,
beneficial.
yeah, as long as we have an electronic copy, I can bring it up on the screens.
So essentially, we've not changed any of the road system at all. We've eliminated nine buildings, 10 buildings, 30 units. So this what you see here is 129 units because it's in multiples of 3. The system, nothing's changed. Nothing in terms of the utilities have changed. We previously have met with DPW and the water department about looping the water, which we're going to loop from here down to Cross Street. We've got the sewer that's going to be force main out to Blackmar Street and then down to the Dupree pumping station. We have the emergency access out to Lakeview Avenue. And we're thinking that this is a good plan that we can move forward with in terms of the road system and the number of units. Now, we did have a conversation with the encroachment of the firing range, and we believe we've proposed a solution to that, which is being evaluated. And we're hoping that we can resolve the issue of the encroachment of the recycling center onto our property down in this end. But essentially, everything has been shifted back out to the Lake Street. And quite honestly, the things that have been asked of us that are missing is a lighting plan within the development, a landscape plan, and architectural plans. And other than that, I'm not quite sure that the board is looking for any additional information other than what we've talked about. Rob has done a pretty good job of identifying what we've already submitted and what's in compliance, and I don't think there's any kind of, I don't think there's any information there is not favorable to the project, moving forward. But I think we're providing quite a bit of, infrastructure for the town as far as the pump station, the sewer main, the ability for the people on Blackmar Street to come in and connect to the sewer as well as the people on Cross Street. And the looping of the water, which will be very valuable to the system, the town system. And of course, the fiscal impact, we've already demonstrated that this is a positive revenue stream for the town. Very minimal, if any, impact to the school system. So I think with that, Mr. Chairman, that is really kind of where we're at.
Okay,
We can hear from whoever is interested in talking.
I'd like to, we need to hear from the board first, sir. Before we open up to the public, you just please give us some patience.
So just from what Lou mentioned about outlying item, I think he's correct. Architectural plans, landscape plans and photometric plan and lighting specifications are on there. But, you know, there's still a few items that are open that need to be taken care of, like, you know, the traffic peer review. There's some information that it's really about the off-site items, which are really the most important from this board's perspective, that need to be meshed out, so there's gonna have to be some additional information that's submitted. So that's one of the items. The other one too, so civil and stormwater peer review. The civil and stormwater peer review was done for the first rendition of this project, which included the loop road, the two accesses along Prospect Street. There was stormwater infrastructure for that road near the shooting range. There was not a road connected to Lake Street at that point. So with that is gonna have to be.
We understand that, not to interrupt, but we understand that based on this revised plan, that certain things have to be redone.
Correct.
Stormwater is one of them.
We
And
have a
that-
lot to be redone.
Excuse me?
You may have a lot to be redone.
Yeah, well, it's not, this is not something that is, you know, it's gonna comply with just
Well,
the regulations, so.
I'd rather continue hearing from Rob.
Thanks, Bill. The sorry. So the stormwater peer review needs to be done for the application that's in front of us. The other item too, big one is meshing out this Dupree pump station situation, because that's a major one. After digging through, as you all know, I'm fairly new to the position since April of this year. So a lot of this background information, such as the Dupree pump station, I wasn't really aware of, but Jesse, you've been phenomenal in kind of getting me up to speed on what exactly has happened with that pump station. And actually, Jesse, I don't know if you can add, but so right now, you know, you've compiled the receipts and work orders, which it's just the material cost that is $118,000, which includes when the town accepted the pump station, correct?
That is correct.
Not including issues that occurred prior to the developer handing the station over to the town. And I actually spoke with Chris at the DPW today, and it sounds like there's still some items that are getting fixed, such as a bypass valve or something. So there's a lot involved with that, and just so you're aware, Lou, that really, there needs to be a discussion, and I understand where you're coming from as far as, you know, what needs to be replaced. I think, Jesse, it's really just what we're looking for is not necessarily the full replacement of a pump station, but the existing pump station to meet the specifications of the town that were developed after this station was.
That's not gonna happen.
Okay, so that's,
You know, where you have a pump station that has adequate capacity, but it has functioning problems that we're not contributing to at the present time. So we're in a position to help and provide some either funding or private maintenance or that kind of thing. But we're not in the business of building a pump station for the town. We're building a pump station for our development, which will be privately maintained and not a bother to town services. It'll be maintained by a homeowners association, but, and we're, what we've, requested is just, let's see where we are with regard to what needs to be replaced or fixed in that pump station, and then what the cost is related to those fixes. And then we can decide how much and when we want to participate in that.
Duly noted. So that is an item, and then I think the other item too, which is part of the regulations, is just the development phasing plan. That's another, that's a very simple item, kind of a low key item. It's pretty much my list currently. I'd recommend the board, there's approval criteria for the special permit. Obviously, it's up to the board, if you're interpreting to make sure that Lou meets or doesn't meet those qualifications, that's up to the board. I would just leave it at that. And that's pretty much all I have to say on the item. I don't know if there's more.
Do we know on the pump station, it's capacity, but do we know with this project as presented, does that bring it up to 80% capacity, 90% capacity? I mean, we just use the word, but I don't know how close.
It's the town's peer reviewer. I haven't had any contact with them, and
Do we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that answer tonight.
Okay.
Jesse probably doesn't either, but I'm
I
sure
would
we
be
can.
curious
Yeah.
to hear where that brings that
That's
pump station.
It's a fair question.
In addition to that, he also mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, providing access to Blackbird Street.
What?
we're providing sewer to Blackmar Street and continuing the sewer down Blackmar, down Cross Street to the pre-pumping station.
Okay.
So we're providing a sewer connection for our development, plus the ability for anyone else along the line if they choose to do that.
So that has to be included in the calculation.
I mean, there's other things.
It is included. It's the plans have been submitted.
Okay.
Yeah, there's.
In other words, the peer reviewer knows our flow
Okay.
per day. And the word that there's adequate capacity to handle our development.
All right.
What that means or what the excess capacity or what, I don't know anything about it, but I think you'd have to ask that question to the peer reviewer who did it.
Nick?
Is it a reduction in 9 buildings? That what you're showing us?
The reduction in 29 units, 30 units.
What was the thought process for the buildings that you chose?
Well, under the bylaw, townhouse is considered 3 units attached, so we designed the project with 3 units in each building. So that's how we.
No, I was asking what was the thought process in the ones that you actually chose to?
To eliminate. So there's an isolated wetland in this area here that we had designed around. Well, let me put it to you this way, we had proposed that this wetland area be filled and replicated at a more reasonable location along the wetland rather than being isolated in that fashion, which is what we show here. Now that the Conservation Commission may consider that. We had a discussion about it last night. But regardless of that, we've decided to, if they want it replicated, we'll replicate it and we'll use this as open space. Or we just eliminated all the units in this particular area. We also eliminated the horseshoe that's up in this area here, closest to the recycling center. And those, when you add those buildings in.
Why the stand to one side,
Oh,
or
sure.
that one is not in front of the one in back, so we can all. see.
Yeah. So anyways, we eliminated all these buildings right in here. We eliminated this loop of a roadway here. And so what ends up happening is these buildings and this, it becomes a little bit more open. And as I mentioned, this isolated wetland in this location here, from a practical standpoint as a developer, you typically would want your wetlands associated with other wetlands on the site, not out in the middle of the desert. You know, this is just a barren area. So, usually, I think the Concom rules are a 2-to-1 replication area. We've only provided 1.4 to 1 here. So last night they asked us to bring them a plan that showed 2-to-1 replication, and then they'd make a decision. But in either case, there aren't gonna be any units. We're not putting units back in there. It would become open space or some sort of a passive recreational type of activity there.
Can I just get back to the conversation from the board before we go up to the public? And Lou, I know you've sat up there, but you mind just sitting down so we can have more of a conversation?
Yeah, sure.
With the board?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. So from a procedural runoff. I think Lou has to submit a final plan set, or he has sent you something?
Well, this is just a one-sheet conceptual plan, really, so.
Can I answer it? Yeah. I mean, the plan that we have, this plan here is been filed and is being reviewed. All right, okay. The only thing that we're showing tonight is the reduction in the number of units. So when we revise these plans again to incorporate the revised stormwater, the recommendations of the traffic consultant, the landscape plan, and whatever other information is being asked of us, that will be your final revised plan. Sometimes I don't know what the policy is of the planning board, but sometimes those are conditions of approval. And you approve it, then we bring in the revised plans, and then that's when it becomes final. Or we revise the plans ahead of time, you look at them, or you review them, and once you get everybody's input from the peer reviewers, then that becomes the final plan. But I think we've held off on making any more revisions at this point till we get feedback from the board relative to this proposal for the density. But I think I've mentioned before that we're not looking to redesign the road system that we have. This is what you see on that plan there in blue with the roads. That's the plan that you have in front of you today submitted.
I only ask because so portions of this need to be, the things that have changed need to be peer reviewed.
Right. Particularly the drainage.
Yeah.
In other words, the things that we've done that have been reviewed, we have the swept path analysis, we've done that. We've had the traffic peer review, he's working off of this plan. Police have had this plan. So all of these items that we've submitted relative to the fire flow analysis, the capacity of the sewer, and all these other things, emergency access, none of those things have changed with regard to the revised plan. But there are these 3 or 4 things that Rob has mentioned that we know needs to be confirmed and verified for the board to get to an end game.
Okay. That's what, in terms of next steps, is the changes are peer reviewed, and you talk about traffic. We need to, Lou's submitted a number of units that he believes is the correct number in terms of density. Is someone going to look at that and say, yeah, he's right, or?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we can verify the wetland calculation and, you know, it's a simple calculation and making sure that the math is correct, which,
This is, with all due respect, I mean, we just put this out on the table tonight, so this is the first time we're out to see it.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that we had the opinion from town council, and we decided that we would work towards some sort of density reduction, as you've previously mentioned, and, so this is the first time it's being seen in public, basically. But it was important to us to keep the road system the same, so that everything that's being reviewed is what's applicable to this plan, with the exception of the stormwater and drainage.
And then, I guess this might be a question for Jesse, in terms of getting a time frame for when we'll know the dollars and cents of what we're looking at in terms of the pumping station. When do we think that might be available to share with the?
So as far as what we've spent to date or what a pumping station replacement or upgrade would cost?
Well, so I don't know. So it seems like we're looking, Lou has suggested that perhaps he would be willing to contribute some amount of money towards either the replacement or to a repair or to do something with that pumping station. When will we have a number to say, well, this is option one, option two, option three, these are the relative costs? Or is that not going to happen, or what is that?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly highlight, you know, some options, but I think cost is all relative. You know, DPW, for example, if we were replacing a sewer station, we might have an estimate on what that might cost, but it really comes down to what our contractors bid and what the cost actually comes out at that time. We can give a preliminary idea based on a previous replacement, but I think the numbers are really going to come down to what they're able to get for pricing and what the preferred path is too. We might have several suggestions on what might be you know, acceptable for either repairs or upgrades.
Yeah, so I think that, so I don't know, but I think that needs to happen, right? So we need, you know, this is one plan, this is another plan, this is what this plan costs, this is what this costs, and what's reasonable for Lou's contribution would be towards those different options. I think that's a necessary conversation to have, right, before we reach the end of this application process. And then I just have a question, Lou, about the rotaries in the network of roads. So the one that, for the road that's going out to Lake Street, what's that rotary? What's the purpose of that road?
One of our concerns is cut through.
Oh, I see.
So typically, traffic calming measures can include a rotary, could include some other, in my experience, police and fire, they don't like speed bumps, so speed bumps are not an option, I don't think, at that point. But a rotary of some sort gives someone the opportunity to slow down rather than, and to really kind of make it a situation where people don't cut through. So that's the one thing. So, but if we make improvements to the intersection, it becomes less attractive. Because you can see the distance is quite longer than actually being at the intersection, but I've watched the intersection. There's people who are stopped at the intersection or in the process of inching out before they can see far enough. And that process, if it's during peak hours, will back up traffic. And so people aren't taking chances, especially if there's a snowbank or something, that they're gonna creep out until they see it far enough out so they can get out, and then they make the turn. Most of it's turning left. But what that does is, though, it creates a queuing along Lake Street. And that's what slows the traffic down in that area. So we just don't want them backing up to where I have it shaded in purple there, where they then decide that they're gonna cut through the development. And there are other options there. Obviously, we can put a gate there, or we can, put a restriction there of some sort, so it's so it doesn't allow people to get in. And those are also considerations that, we can explore as well.
Thank you.
Well,
And then just one other question was, maybe for you, Rob, and maybe for town council, is to what extent can we condition an approval on mitigation to third-party property? So that parcel that Lou was talking about, where they could do more in terms of sightlines and things like that. There's sort of off-site mitigation for property they don't control, and how
Well,
does that work?
what I think the critical item when it comes to offsite mitigation, you can absolutely condition it, but you don't want to do it in a description, in a condition. You want to reference a plan essentially. So that's where, the peer reviewer kind of meshed out, or your traffic consultant and the peer reviewer, I think is going to mesh out more of a definitive plan on what would be recommended. So that, because we've done that for many other projects.
But if the peer reviewer says, Lou, do this on those people's property,
Well,
and they don't agree.
well, yeah, then we cannot condition anybody to do anything on property that is not owned.
Right, so
If
that's-
it's town-owned property, that's fine, but this is where things need to be meshed out, figured out. And I don't know the answer to be completely frank with you. That's where I'm interested to see kind of what the consultant and the peer review consultant can kind of see what makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not a traffic expert. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think so. It's, yeah, if traffic mitigation is recommended that we cannot condition, what do we do with that? That's the
Well,
question.
and that's where this is where this is getting difficult, which is why, getting the experts involved and why I was pushing the traffic peer review. I think, we're on the right track now where there's wholesome discussions to figure out the process, but I'll leave it at that.
And then. I'm occupying a lot of time.
Yeah, we're gonna be here till midnight,
I know,
Brian,
I
come
know.
on.
But in terms of.
Now you only have one
I have one more question. In terms of having a final plan set, not oftentimes, but sometimes, things get lost in the shuffle. And this is different, but that's the same, and this is different. Is it better to have something like here?
Absolutely.
Evaluate.
For the approval, we need to have a final definitive plan set.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that. We'll figure it out. Well, Lou will figure it out, but you need a final definitive plan set. And it sounds like that is the ultimate goal, is to move forward with that. So, and that is what ultimately the planning board is going to vote to deny or approve, whichever you want.
Thanks.
You done?
One more.
I guess I've got one question for Jesse. Jesse, I understand, you've only been in the position a short time. The situation, I'm hearing the word capacity a lot, and I understand what capacity is, but is there a rate of failure on this that has been clearly identified, or is there number of days that the site's been down, the pumping station's been down over a year, or some measurement that you could give us? Is there a, I understand there's been lots of repairs and the dollar amounts of the repairs, but when it comes down to it, we're trying to see if there's the ability to add volume to it, and it sounds like the volume that there's a volume being added to it. And I guess what I'm trying to do is assess what this current situation is right now with the failure rate. Is there, do you have a metric on that right now?
Well, we could essentially look at the data. We've got extensive historical information on this site as far as alarms, DPW response, contractor response, extensive repairs, things of that nature. Off the top of my head, I don't have, how frequent it would happen on average. But it really varies. We'll have periods where, it seems like we're there every other day. And then there are times where it's, a longer period of time where we don't go there, and then all of a sudden it's a much larger issue. So it's somewhat sporadic, but we could certainly step back, look at the bigger picture and see, on average, is this, once a month? Is it twice a month? What does it actually translate to on the whole?
So there's times when this site completely shuts down, is what I'm hearing. So,
Yeah, catastrophic failures. We've had a couple here where we've had to actually hire a company to come in and bypass the station entirely. The sewer doesn't stop flowing. It's something that has to be pumped out at all times. When it reaches its capacity, it has to pump out. So when we have a catastrophic failure, it's something that we must move forward with getting the sewage removed, and typically that's a pumper truck or something similar. Each of these sites are built with redundant pumps, so there are 2 on each of these sewer pumping stations throughout Bellingham. However, we have had a couple of instances where it's been either a failure to a main component of the infrastructure, or failure to both pumps. So we've had various things happen at this site where we've lost the ability to pump entirely, and that translates to the need to get a third party on board with pumping and removing the site manually.
so the temporary fix is to bring in a pump, to pump around it, the pump around your stations when this goes down.
Yeah,
You can't
essentially,
shift the capacity to another station or something like that. This is it.
essentially, yes, correct.
Okay, that answers some questions for me. That's what I had tonight.
As far as what we're discussing tonight, I don't have any more questions other than what I asked about the pump station capacity when and if this comes online. But I will be very eager to discuss the traffic situation when that is presented, and also hear what the public has to say.
Okay. Before I turn over to the public, I'd like to articulate some concerns. I agree with other board members on the traffic. I think that's a big concern. We'll get input from the police chief. Pump station, you said that you're real close on a lot of things, but nothing is finalized. So that sort of bothers me. So the pump station's a concern. I don't know if we've addressed who actually owns the railroad tracks on this property. And we saw the issue of the Franklin access. We now have a new plan in front of us that we saw for the first time this evening. Wastewater is a big concern. Emergency access on the Lakeview is gonna be a big concern. I'm not close to making a decision now, and I wanna get to the density. You spoke about tonight reducing the density. And the reason the density was reduced was because of a disagreement in calculation. It wasn't done because of what the board has requested for almost a year, and the public has requested for almost a year, and public safety has requested. You reduced the density simply because you had 2 different calculations on how to do things. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Listen, you have a bylaw, we disagree with the interpretation of the
I
bylaw.
understand that.
We have a choice as the applicant, we can either, ignore what your bylaw says and go battle it out, or we can meet what the board's looking for in terms of reduced density, and that's what we've chosen, I think.
But
Yeah,
Density was just reduced based on calculation and disagreement. It wasn't based on what you've heard from the public and the board.
Well, Mr. Chair, just one second, Lou, because, look, the calculation is the calculation. Lou's looking at figuring this out. There's still a lot more information to go through.
I agree.
And I don't think that this conversation is very productive at this point.
Okay.
And I would just highly recommend that, if you have, obviously, if the board has more questions or comments, this is the time to ask, but I would recommend opening this up to the public.
That's
And
fine.
like I said, I mean, we have a stacked agenda. I think most of the people in the audience are here for the next agenda item. And as I mentioned, jokingly, but also not jokingly, we're gonna be here till midnight and nobody really wants that. So
I just wanted to complete my.
I understand, and it's your board. Let's keep this productive.
I'd like to open up to the public. Yeah, gentleman in the front row.
One question first, Lou, if you wouldn't mind clarifying, the green areas are wetlands. Are those as currently mapped, or are these as proposed after modification?
These are flagged wetlands that have been surveyed in the field, and they've been reviewed by the Conservation Commission as part of the previous subdivision application.
And are there modifications to wetlands or streams that are not identified on this, such as culverts and roads crossing streams that the town and the public need to be aware of?
No, this crossing over the wetland area has been there since day one. And there are no changes from the original subdivision plan relative to that crossing.
Can I follow up with two comments,
You
please?
certainly can, sir.
Okay. As you brought up, and we're glad that you did, I'd like to highlight that the position of at least some people in the town, whether on the board or not, is that there's a proposal for construction here, partly on property that we don't believe the proposer owns. I understand it's a subject of great contention. The railroad right of way, it's been the understanding of many people that's been both under the control and the legal ownership of the town for a great many number of years. I understand it's gonna take a long time to research that. Given that that ownership may be contested, I'd like to respectfully suggest to the town that it might be premature to make a ruling on this special permit for something that may not be constructible. Along the same lines, I believe your peer reviewer in some comments which you will be receiving are going to flag that the proposed sewer force main out the railroad right away is not constructible, not desirable, and an enormous health and safety hazard to the town public wells, cannot be constructed as shown, and the engineering is unsound. You'll be receiving comments on that. I won't get into the details now. Quite frankly, there's too many.
Yeah, there are some, Mr. Chair, so regarding the right of way, this was discussed at last evening's Concom meeting, that the town is actually conducting a title search on that, and just to get a more in-depth and definitive answer to the right of way. I mean, Lou, you've submitted a lot of information previously, and our town council really wants to do a more definitive title search, because there's some information that they seem it's just not quite clear. And the other item too is that as far as the peer review for that Kleinfelder has conducted, we're focusing mostly on the Dupree pump station situation, but you're aware, Lou, that they had some comments regarding some of the sewer plans as far as a little bit more detail. So that's an open item.
But that's within the development, not relative to the Dupree Spike.
That's what I'm saying, is that within the railroad right of way, so those all need to be meshed out. So, just so everybody's aware. Okay.
Any other comments? Gentleman in the back.
My name's Frank Morse. I live at 434 Center Street. I've been watching this project over the years when Mr. Faffa was doing it. And I've been in the excavation and the sewer business all my life. I've never seen exposed units out to the elements like on that piece of property. I mean, what, are you kidding me? You got switches, sensors, motors, pumps, valves, and they're out to the elements? How long do you think it's gonna last? Well, I would suggest if you're gonna move forward with this thing, that someone designs a structure over that stuff. We have some heat, some cooling, all that's very important for all that stuff, because you're demanding to work 24/7, and it's not gonna do it. It's gonna fail on you, you're all gonna blame each other, and you're gonna be, and all the stuff's gonna run back down the Peters River like it did 2 months ago. So smart now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman in the back.
Agni Barushi, 525 Lake Street. I'm actually the resident at the intersection in question that's bisected by Lake Street.
Okay.
So I just want to reiterate comments from the past about concerns about any impacts to that intersection, specifically based on the mention of eminent domain. You know, we obviously are concerned about, you know, the value of our property and, you know, we have a baby at home. I'm concerned about traffic impacts to that area, and so I'll reiterate that again.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Ma'am, I couldn't see.
Hi, Pauline Aiello, Lakeview Ave. I just have a little question about the intersection we're discussing.
Certainly.
Part of that is from Franklin. So why are we discussing that if we can't do anything about that intersection unless Franklin's involved?
We will work through that process.
But if we're doing something about the intersection, wouldn't 3 stop signs work?
We're not there right now yet.
But that to me would make sense.
Let us look at the peer review.
And I have one more little thing to say.
Sure.
Lou mentioned something about the study that was done in 1935, I believe,
Yes,
for a road there.
correct.
They didn't have Amazon trucks going up and down the street then. I think they had little tiny cars. I wasn't born then. I know you think. I wasn't born then, but, I would think that the road that they planned in 1935 was a lot smaller than what we're gonna need.
Correct.
Thank you for listening.
And ma'am, thank you for adding some levity.
We needed that.
Any other questions? Well, last two gentlemen, the far left-hand side.
Hi, Tim Twardowski, Oxford Drive in Franklin. Question / comment on the unit count, and I'll first agree with the chair that the density has not changed. The only thing that's changed is the amount of lot area that's been used to calculate how many units are in. As I understand it, the reduction in the unit count that we saw this evening is based on the presence of about 576,000 square feet of wetland on the property. But the definition of lot area specifically excludes areas subject to protection under the Wetlands Protection Act, which includes a riverfront area. On the submittal that we received, or that the town received from the applicant, it also shows about 300,000 square feet of riverfront area. I don't see any reduction in units based on that 300,000 square feet. So based on the way I'm reading it, he's still about 15 units too high.
I can't answer that.
Yeah, so you bring up an excellent point, and I think, number one, there's gonna have to be coordination between myself and the wetlands agent here, sorry, conservation agent, on actually looking at that 576,000 square feet of wetlands, because you bring up an excellent point, and the thing that's a little bit complicated right now, which Lou, I'm sure you'll probably agree with, is like, there's actually an RDA that's out with the Conservation Commission regarding whether or not one of these riverfronts is actually a river due to drought conditions and such, which all I will say is that your comment is extremely valid and it is going to be looked at. So, okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. One last question. Yes, sir.
Hi, Charlie Feely, 4 Duham Way. May I approach the drawing?
Yes, sir.
This is Prospect Street. This is Lake Street. So this is where you're gonna enter onto Lake Street. This is, I have to presume this is between Prospect Lake and the first house.
Crush. Yeah,
That was an absolute lake after all the rain we got.
Yep.
There's no way you can build a road there.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Rob, what's the next step you think we should take? I think we have some work to do.
Yeah, I think, there's been some good conversation tonight. I assume, Lou, you want to move forward with getting this stuff squared away, and I think,
well, I guess when we first started the meeting, we were gonna have, let's get this traffic, the peer review on the traffic has been completed. The board is interested in what the peer reviewer has to say. So I think, you need to get the peer reviewer in here to discuss it with, the board, and if it's necessary, we can have our consultant here at the same time. But I think, the way I've read their report is, in my opinion, it's not anything there very substantial that can't be resolved, by simple plan adjustments, but that's your call.
I agree with you on that, and I think what is critical to have a proactive, a very efficient discussion is to have that plan in place. I know you've submitted some sketches which just show some limits of clearing and such. That was submitted, I think, this week, which was colored markups of some limited vegetation clearing and such along the road. So, I think,
Not to cut you off, right, I'm gonna cut you off. So, let's talk about what the town is supposed to be doing and when they're gonna do it. You keep bringing up the railway and that there's a question of ownership. I presented that information to the town 6 months ago. It doesn't take a rocket science to go down to the registry. You can actually do it at home these days. Don't hold that over my head. I presented the information. I have a very, very qualified title examiner. You should have an answer on that. These people who come here and, the people who've been around for all these years, come up with the facts and present them. But don't keep holding me hostage because of that. The Dupie pumping station. I don't know, I've asked for 3 months. What is it? What's the problem? What needs to be fixed? Again, I pay for a guy to go down there. You think they could say, okay, well, this pump doesn't function properly. The switch needs to be replaced. This motor doesn't work properly. Okay, what's the replacement cost? Why are we being held hostage by all this information that this board, nothing personal to the planning board, but why are we being held hostage by information that we've asked for and the town hasn't provided us? We are responsible for our part of the deal. Submit the information, have it reviewed. We pay for the review on behalf of the boards. Why isn't it being done properly? Just answer the question. That's all I ask. Happy to revise the plan as many times as you want me to revise it, but I expect to get responses to the information that's necessary for this board to make a decision. Same thing with the traffic, with the intersection. I can't do things on private property, but I can go there on town property and I can construct that intersection over again because the town owns the right of way. So tell me.
I just articulated, we didn't have the answers, and that, I'm agreeing with you. We don't have the answers.
I just want to know when you will get the answers. Since I'm paying. And I have paid. And then, not to mention the fact that they'll come back and they'll say, oh, we're out of money. And so can you pay again? That's not fair to us. We're the applicant. We're trying to approach this in good faith.
And
Please.
as are we.
Please try to help out the process. So we can continue it to January 9th and have the peer review come in with the traffic people, or you can continue it to the next meeting in January.
Why don't, in my opinion, why don't we do, because the January 9th meeting is gonna be pretty full and it will get us some time. We can have a nice meaningful discussion at the second meeting in January. We'll get the peer review consultants on board. Lou, you and I can discuss the next kind of phase on what you're thinking for the submission here. And I think we should go from there. So I would recommend that this meeting get continued to January 23rd. That okay?
Fine.
Okay,
Right.
The topic for that one will be traffic.
correct.
So
And we can move with other stuff.
Second.
Motion on the floor to move this to, January 23rd, which is Thursday. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill,
go on.
Steve, aye.
the motion
Jimmy,
passed.
can I ask one last question
Certainly.
regarding the lighting? You have, I think in your rules and regulations for subdivisions, a street lighting requirement. Are we to presume that we would go through by that regulation, or are we doing like a full-blown lighting plan for the whole development? Lighting every inch.
No, you stick to the roads.
Under the subdivision, okay.
Yeah, and the key for the specifications on that is just dark sky compliance and making sure that, I mean, your
We don't
site
have
is
any
so
bugs.
vast that I don't think you're gonna have any spillover, but
Right.
you know, obviously, really the areas that you really need to be cognizant of are the entrance on Prospect Street close to those two houses, and then just implement cutoffs or what you,
Thank
okay?
you for bringing that.
Thank you very much, and
If you can just sign
enjoy the
that.
rest of the night.
Thank you.
Do you need an extension on the time?
Nope, we're at March 31st, so, okay.
So again, as we said before, we have a rather robust agenda.
Have a happy holiday.
So if you will be leaving, ask that you try to keep your conversation.
Have a good one.
outside the vestibule.
Clock. Okay. All right,
All right, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing for the development plan on 211 South Main Street. The applicant and owner, and I apologize, I may mispronounce this. Vasilios Exapolos proposes a 3,300 square foot automotive transmission repair shop at 211 South Main Street, approximately 0.91 plus or minus acres of land, shown on Assessors Map 90-132, zone business 1. The plan was prepared by DGT Associates, 1071 Worcester Road, Framingham, Mass. 01701. Can I ask you to come forward? Thank you.
I move to open the public hearing.
We have motion on the floor to open the public hearing. We have a second. Any discussion? All for the vote?
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, aye.
Bill Devine, aye.
Steve, aye.
Motion passed. Rob, can you give us an overview?
yeah, so I'd recommend that the applicant just give a presentation. I'll pull up the plans on here. Yeah, I can pull them up, just so everybody can see everything on the screen.
Yeah.
But, once they give the presentation, I have my staff memo with a couple comments. I can just explain some items that I would recommend next steps. Of course, we have quite a few people from the public here too, which is great. Let me pull up the plans. Bear with me for one moment.
I thought last time was that.
I got it. I'll just pull it up from our website.
All right.
Almost got it. We're almost there.
We're doing fine.
Aren't we?
I think so.
Are we doing fine? All right, I'm gonna pull up the site plan.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably the best thing to go from.
Yeah. There we go. So, Mr. Chair, I would recommend that the applicant take it away, but it's your meeting.
Gentlemen, floor's yours.
All right. Well, hello, my name is Joe Lozano. I'm the civil site engineer for this project, from DGT Associates. I'm here with the applicant, Bill Alexopoulos. Tonight I'd like to review with you the key design points with regards to the site's overall layout, functionality, usage, and how that ties into the stormwater design, sewage disposal system design, utility design, and site landscaping. First, I'd just briefly give a summary of where we are. The site is a corner lot with South Main Street located on the left-hand side, Harpin Street located to the north, and Mansion Street located to the east. The property is located in the Business 1 zoning district and is surrounded by commercial, residential, and institutional use sites. The site has been developed in the past, but is currently in mostly an unkempt landscape condition. The proposed project includes the construction of a 3,300 square foot building to be used for an auto repair shop specializing in transmission repair, and a 900 square foot rent-a-car facility. These proposed uses are allowed as a permitted use in the Business 1 zoning district, and the businesses will work symbiotically together, as customers who will need their transmission repair will likely need a car for travel and will have the rent-a-car service next door to rent a car from. The building has been designed to contain 3 garage door bays on the northern side, and contains the customer sales area for the auto repair shop and the rent-a-car shop entrance along the west-hand side. Therefore, the customer parking, including the handicap space, has been located along that side of the building, while employee parking and cars that are to be serviced would be located on the north side of the building in the parking lot area over there. The site has been designed to centrally locate all the proposed impervious surfaces on the site in order to raise up the existing grade. And that was done in order to capture and treat the stormwater on the site, which was necessary based on the results that we had from our on-site soil testing that was conducted earlier this year. That revealed a relatively shallow estimated seasonal high groundwater elevation. In saying that, the proposed stormwater system utilizes a relatively expansive, low-profile, open bioretention basin to provide mitigation of peak flows and runoff volumes, stormwater recharge capture volume, water quality volume, as well as treatment to the stormwater consisting of TSS and phosphorus removal. Pre-treatment for the stormwater is provided through a combination of deep sump hooded catch basins, trench drains routed to deep sump manholes, and sediment forebays. No public sewer is available in any of the surrounding 3 streets. Therefore, we have designed a sewage disposal system for the sewage flow generated from the building. The sewage disposal system has been sited in the area that was the best based on our soil testing that we did at the property earlier this year. The full design has been submitted and is under review by the Board of Health right now. After designing the sewage disposal system and the stormwater system that I previously explained, there was really only one area left to route the rest of the site utilities. So the water, gas, electric, and communication services enter the site through the southwest portion of the site and then enter into the building where the rent-a-car facility is located. Lastly, we worked with the applicant to develop a landscaping plan. The goals of the landscaping plan were to create screening from the residential abutters to the south, as well as to hide some of the retaining wall structure that was required for the sewage disposal system due to the high groundwater table. We've included planting green giant arborvitaes for the screening in those areas. Additionally, the bioretention basin itself has been proposed to include some plantings. at the ridge point, the bioretention basin is split into two main cells. At the ridge point of those two cells, we've placed a couple of red maple trees. And then for plantings within the bioretention basin itself, we've included shrubs that consist of rhododendrons, dogwoods, hollies, and winterberries. Additionally, most of the site will be replanted with a wildflower / conservation seed mix. This was done for a combination of reasons, one for screening and visual aesthetic. The other was to help with the stormwater by stabilizing the swales and the bioretention basins that are on the site. There will be a portion of the site that will be landscaped with grass. That will be done over the sewage disposal system from the back of the parking lot area for easy maintenance and access to the system if needed throughout the process of the site being open. And with that, that's really a high-level review of the stormwater, sewage disposal, utilities, landscaping, parking. And at that point, I guess, any more detailed information, I'll open it up for you guys for discussion.
Thank you very much.
So I think everybody has my staff memo, just a checklist of the submission items. So a couple items that kind of remained or that weren't included were the landscape plan, lighting plan, and architectural elevations. So the applicant did submit a landscape plan and an architectural elevation, which it just came in earlier this week, I think. So I didn't put it in your drop boxes just because it came in so recent, and I don't really want, we can discuss it if you'd like, but I think it would make sense to listen to public comment, because I'm sure that screening is probably a main concern that might be able to get implemented into the landscape plan as we move forward. If there's additional items, if you have it, you can pull it up, but either way, so that's one item. The other item too, with the architectural elevations, I know you submitted something. I think what it looked more like was kind of the skeleton of the building. What we would really want to see is more of fixtures and like what the building is going to look like, which that detail in that drawing isn't exactly there. And maybe we can discuss that I can give you more definitively, like exactly what we're looking for, and even show you an example of previous submissions so you can kind of see exactly. I may not have been very clear when I mentioned it in the pre-application meeting. So that's two items. I would also state that, obviously there's an on-site stormwater management system. Recommend that this go out to third-party peer review. We can get that ball rolling quickly. That's a key item to move this forward. What else do I have? One of the comments was just the pedestrian refuge around the building. I know you have a couple doors located here for the building. There's overhead doors on this side, and then two doors here, one for this little rent-a-car area. And then there's another entrance for what I believe will be the office in the center of the building. So just one thing that's a little problematic with that, I know that's the drive aisle that you're walking directly into, which is why typically you're gonna want either a curb sidewalk or bollards or something. So that's one item that if you could look into that, just to make sure that when cars are coming, it's a little tight. Nobody's gonna get struck by a vehicle when they're leaving the building. The other item that's also pretty minor in nature, where you have your entrance, since these transition ramps are just gonna have to be ADA accessible, if you can just add more detail to make sure that it's per the ADA design and just comply with the grades and such.
Okay, yeah, I have some spot shots on the grading advantage plan that show a 2% cross slope, and the road is dead flat. So
do you have the detail for what you're gonna be proposing there in the detail sheets? I didn't think.
We have I think I have an asphalt, just like an asphalt like cross section, because it's honestly it's anything that we do in that small area will be a huge improvement for the rest of the sidewalk that's on that section of the road, because it's in shambles. So
correct.
We were just basically proposing to provide a real sidewalk up to where the, fake sidewalk turns into dirt. So we're connecting back into the, portion of the sidewalk that's, that most actually still resembles a sidewalk.
Yeah.
With the sidewalk.
And we don't need an answer tonight, because I know you're probably gonna want to think about it, but one thing, as this improvement can occur, one thing that I would ask is if you could continue the sidewalk to where that newly constructed concrete transition ramp is. I know you're gonna have a paver on site anyway. That would be extremely beneficial to the town. If you're willing to do it, like I said, you don't have to, of course,
Mhm.
you know, accept it tonight, but
I'll take notes.
just an item, because you are correct, that sidewalk is no longer a sidewalk. It is what used to be a sidewalk. So with that, that is what I have.
Rob, can I add one thing to that, please? When you get a more definitive looking building plans, we're gonna need to know where the fire alarm control room is, where the sprinkler FTC is gonna be, and a hydrant within 100 feet of the FTC, not blocking the entranceway or any parking spaces or parking lot spaces.
So I need a full fire line going to this building?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because of the type of occupancy you require, and it'd be going through third party review, but I can tell you right now, you're gonna put a sprinkler system in it.
Okay,
Full
awesome.
monitored AFA system.
Awesome, thank you. And you guys need to go into its own like closet, I'm assuming, and everything like that?
Yes,
Okay.
it's gonna be its own control room, it's gonna be marked,
Understood.
and it's gonna have a 4-inch FTC. We'll get into it, but if you're gonna submit a set of plans,
Right.
what the building looks like, I'm gonna be looking for that on those buildings.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
We can,
4-inch minimum?
4-inch, yeah, just kind of put it where it's gonna be and have, if your sprinkler company will submit a set of plans,
Yeah.
it'll go to out third party review. We're not fire protection engineers, it'll go out to a third party review and they'll comment on it, but
Okay.
it'll be a 4-inch stores.
Sounds good.
Just a question on that, is that,
The building's 190 feet long.
I've never heard a sprinkler system in an auto repair just because of the fumes and the heat that comes, yeah. Do the other buildings?
We're not gonna talk about that tonight, but I can guarantee you put a sprinkler system in.
And it's right now, okay. I just wasn't sure, I haven't seen those in there.
Yep.
While we're at that table, chief. Any concerns from the police department?
No, it's the sidewalk around the building is, you know, if we're gonna enforce sidewalks on cul-de-sacs, not even on the road, we should really look at making it a condition to fix the sidewalk that abuts their property here, where I don't know that we can, but if you can, that's kind of our only concern is the sidewalk situation around the building is lousy.
Thank you.
And when you say around the building, you mean around the site?
Public
itself?
ways around your building, wherever there,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
there was an existing sidewalk, having that be squared away while your, pavers are there doing stuff anyway.
You're adjacent to a school, obviously you're aware of that.
No, I just didn't know if you were talking about a sidewalk literally like around the entirety of my building itself.
Just
or
wherever
the
there was
property.
an existing one at one point,
Yeah,
that's all.
I think you mean around the property.
Yeah, understood.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And with that comment about the school, but we're gonna focus on that on the drawing, so there should be a drawing of that at some point. There's a school there's several schools down there.
Only 2 now.
My daughter's at one of them,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Okay.
Nick?
Try and stay high level, the parking areas, I understand we have the bylaw that calculates how many stalls per sales in the garage space. What do our bylaws have to say about cars remaining in the parking lot for a long period of time?
So that's a good question, and one item that, not to foreshadow a public comment that may or may not come up at some point tonight. I know abutters were questioning the rent-a-car specifically because you look at the enterprise type businesses, they could have 10, 15 cars on site and they're very limited on the spaces here. Now, my understanding is based on the application, the rent-a-car business isn't exactly a standalone business. It's really to do as associated with your transmission repair shop, so it's not really something that's gonna be at the same volume of enterprise. Now, I can understand where the board or the public might say, well, what if it grows to an enterprise? And what I would say with that is looking at the parking calculation, there is a specific number that is allowed for the square footage of the repair business and that office space. And that's gonna be based on the customer parking, really, that's needed based on our bylaws. For the excess parking, what I believe should happen if this does go to approval is a condition that basically states whatever the excess of that parking is to meet the bylaws, that is what you're allowed for the on-site rental capacity. And that's something that we can discuss as we move forward, because I think that that is the intent of the rent-a-car place. And you can
Yeah.
completely understand concern with.
So I guess a few things with regards to that. You are right. The rent-a-car place is mostly on there as a like supplemental help out business to the auto repair shop. I will also say that the applicant's main focus with this entire permitting process of the building is the auto repair shop. And if the rent-a-car facility being attached to it is the end all deal breaker, I think we would be able to work with you on that, but we'll receive comment and go from there.
Thank you.
You know, I had a similar question about parking and for those additional cars, and just a question to you, when there's two different distinct uses on the same structure, is that two different? Consider them.
Yes.
Yeah, our calculations, I have calculations on the cover sheets that break down based on the different uses and the different requirements of the different uses, how we comply with zoning on the minimum parking requirements.
Yeah, and just sort of high level.
Yeah.
Rob mentioned that screening is important to us.
Yeah.
Also, we talk about in these kinds of developments, not repairing anything outside, not using pneumatic tools outside, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Just for a future conversation.
We've had conditions as well on plans that, the work be conducted inside the business, which I anticipate for this business, it would have to be. That being said, we still don't want to open ourselves up or neighbors up to noise and have to enforce something, but that would be something in the condition that we can always implement, such as that the doors, when work's being done inside, that doors have to be closed at all times when the work's being done. Simple things such as that.
We've dealt with that
That's
before.
That's down the road, of course, but it's a good point.
Anything
So
else?
this,
Thank you.
the site's cleared right now. Is that correct?
Mostly, there are a
Most
few.
of the trees have come down.
Yeah, there's a few spare trees around the property. I guess if we're,
Dumps are us.
Yeah.
yeah,
So I guess where I was gonna go with this is that typically when we do a project, there's concern about, and that's a question I have maybe for Rob, is that, the pre-construction phase, we probably, put down and worry about runoff and drainage and, stuff like that. And do we need to do something sooner than later on this because they basically cleared the lot?
Yeah, so I guess, first of all, as far as clearing the lot, I mean, you're allowed to cut trees. The land disturbance comes into play when you start grubbing, which is removing the stumps, because that's considered a disturbance. The one item to note with this that is critical is that because the trees are cut down, and this comes into the stormwater peer review, it's not really a wooded lot. It's now would be considered more of a meadow, which will be reviewed as part of the pre-development calculations, but that there is ways to account for that.
So I guess, do we need to account for that now as opposed to later with
Yeah.
runoff now?
if I may,
Yeah.
I under my design, I considered the entire site as a mix of wooded slash grass. So it does account for it. I'm not trying to say that the site is meadow or grass and it's a wood slash grass combo. It's got a lower CN number than grass. And so I am basically accounting for less runoff leaving the site. I will say that there is very minimal site runoff under existing conditions. I had met with Rob. One of the main things I had trouble with is even under the 10-year storm event where the site receives more than 5 inches of rain over a 24-hour period of time. I have 0 CFS and 0 runoff volume leaving the site under existing conditions. So this stormwater system is, as I explained it, it's a very expansive rain garden that takes up a very large portion of the property, which is part of the reason why the parking is so limited on this site is because I need to meet the stormwater regulations and I needed all of this landscaped area in order to account for the minimal amount of parking that I am providing on the site. I think it's somewhere around 3,200 cubic feet of storage this rain garden is providing on a 1 acre lot, just to try to even, match those flows. And it is accounting for the site being as a wooded slash grass site, and not like a clear cut site.
Okay, you Google your site, I Googled your site.
Yeah.
Today, and trees everywhere.
Yeah, and
there it is.
And the
so-
reason why it was, tree slash grass was because, the understory of there were trees, but the understory for a woods thing, the woods is taking into consideration the quality of the understory. And I would say that on this site, the quality of the understory, based on what I've seen from walking it myself, it does not appear to be wood. So like full wood. So I counted it as wood slash grass. That was the reason for the analysis point. I'd be open for, somebody's an opposing opinion, but we did start from a somewhat conservative level as far as the analysis was concerned.
And there's several foundations still in place. There's probably like 4 different foundations there for previous buildings. There was a liquor store there, there was a house there, there was 2 garages out there. Those foundations are still in place.
So just so everybody's aware, because there's just a lot of very technical information that was just explained. For the way that the stormwater regulations work, you cannot increase runoff off your site. That is the regulations. So you need to make sure that you model your runoff pre-development correctly to make sure that your post-development, after you build this, it's not going to increase flows off site. Is that not, you're not allowed to do that. So.
Does a pre-development site,
And the
does it include
pre-development,
what's a higher level, the wooded area that I see in Google or the site as it is now?
the curve number that Joe is referring to, the wood slash grass, has a higher curve number, which amounts to more flow. Meaning that your design is more conservative because the
Okay.
more flow
That's
that
what
comes
I'm-
off pre-development means that.
So we keep the pre-development being with the wood area and.
Yeah, I tried to take into consideration that the site was wooded at a relatively recent point in time, and I'm matching back to that condition.
Yeah,
And,
because
and I like in the beginning of the presentation about, you mentioned that you're putting in screenage for the neighbors. We have
Yeah.
looked at it, we'll look at it in more detail, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I have it
But
here,
it's a start.
yeah, I have it here.
I like
It was thought about, and any comments that people have, that's fine. I mean,
No,
we understand.
I'm saying thank you for starting the
Yeah.
conversation. So that, to me, when you start the conversation, that's a positive. So
I
I
appreciate
call it
that.
out a positive.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So, and
Thank you.
we're going back to the beginning of the conversation. Is there any runoff that we need to worry about because all those things were taken down today before this construction part gets started?
I'm pretty sure that there was puddling on Harpin Street, but that was because of the really poor, I'm hearing giggles, poor, yeah, there was.
In Mansion Street.
on Mansion Street right
Yeah.
behind them.
So Mansion
They
Street,
always flood
Always
right
stays
behind
closed.
them.
But is it
Hold on a
caused by
minute.
the fact that they've taken the trees down and stuff like that now?
No.
It's, I feel like it's increased, it's increased.
Public.
Yeah, we're gonna open up to.
It goes
public.
all the way across the
Maybe
road
we just-
instead of half the road.
We're gonna open up to the public in a moment, but
Okay, I guess we'll open it up, but the concern is that what's started already now, we need to be concerned and take action now because they've started doing things, and normally you'd have barriers in and controlling runoff and all this other stuff when you start construction.
so just to be clear.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about the changing of ground coverage,
Yep,
which they have accounted for in the calcs, which are
In the
going to be peer reviewed, they're gonna be confirmed by an
Yes.
expert.
but do we need to do anything now, is my question.
No,
Okay, that's a
No.
fair answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
at least not to my knowledge, but I
That-
know there's an intermittent stream on the opposite side of Mansion Street that I believe accounts for flooding, but
Okay,
yeah,
that's,
that's offsite and
we'll hear from the public, I'm sure, but that
Absolutely.
answers my question.
Yeah.
Yes or no, thank you. And that's what I have right
Thank you.
when we start.
Just, I'm assuming there's no 3D rendering right now?
There is a rendering, it is 3D, it is, like Rob had, it's more of a skeleton view of the building. If you'd like to see it, I could bring it up right now, I do have it on my flash drive.
Well, for me, if it's a skeleton view, I'm not sure that, actual 3D rendering when the timing is
Yeah.
right will be helpful because that will generate questions from all of us when we see that.
What it's gonna look like.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, if you're looking for building material and, colors and, exteriors, like, we don't have that at this time.
okay.
My comments are very high level. Rob, on the front page, use of adjacent premises approximately location of building within 50 feet of the site. What was your concern there?
Oh, that is actually a Board of Health related situation where they have Board of Health plans. I don't know if the application has been submitted yet or that.
It is.
Okay. That's more of a Board of Health situation, but it's basically when you're putting in a subsurface, septic system, you're required to show, private wells within a certain amount of feet.
Okay,
I didn't see any,
I-
on the plans, and it just needs to be verified at some point, but that's a Board of Health situation, so.
just so you're,
I did go to the Board of Health and ask to have files pulled of the surrounding properties, and I was told that there's no files on record for the surrounding properties that have wells on them. And so if I need to create a statement that says that on the plan, I can do so. But I did do the research, at the Board of Health office.
thank you very much. I live down in South Bellingham. I do notice that sometimes Harper Street, the right-hand side, does tend to flood and get icy at times. I'm sure you're gonna hear about the history of the property, so I'll reserve my comments for later on. And open to the public, because I think the public will address some of the comments I was gonna bring up. So now I'd like to open up to the public. Excuse me, just one second, blonde haired woman.
Oh, you want me to go first?
You wouldn't want to say something earlier?
Oh, I mean, I have a lot of notes.
Yeah,
but
we have a
why don't-
litany.
I let her start. She's lived in the neighborhood longer.
Okay.
Very neighborly.
Thanks.
Can you state your name and address?
Holly Thomas, 51 Harpin Street. My mom's lived there for 65 years. The only thing that was there before was warehouses that haven't been used since the 70s, okay? Everything's grown up over it. You cut down one of the best trees in town on the corner. You should have left it. That's here nor there. So I understand that your business, you want to go in, but I also heard that you guys lost funding for your business, and that's why the site didn't finish getting cleared up.
No,
No,
the town called us up.
yeah, he
and
told us
asked
to
me
stop because he couldn't grab.
stumping because it would disturb the soil. And until I had an approved plan, they didn't want us to take up the stumps. That's why we have to stop.
All right, and then coming
If
into
they had
that,
gone and removed the stumps, as Rob said, it would have brought things up to a different level.
right,
That's why they didn't do it.
okay, but that was the rumor that was going around town that you guys lost funding.
No,
So
no,
I
I
was like,
haven't.
oh, great, then they're gonna get the building half done and lose their
Yeah.
funding again, and then we're gonna be even more of an ugly thing to look at,
No,
okay? So,
it's not
First
even,
off,
I mean, it's a tenant that's going in there. It's, I have tenants going in there. I'm not gonna be operating the business myself.
you're not gonna be operating this,
No, I have tenants going in there.
okay, so I'm worried about fumes coming out from there. The noise of the garage, now, yes, we want the garage doors shut, but the noise of those slamming down, and, all right, so I live close enough to the Vets package store. That gate goes down once a night at 10 o'clock. I know exactly what time it is. Nothing against those guys, they're really cool, but I don't wanna hear these, garage doors going up and down 10 times a day.
So all these are electric now, I can tell you that, and they
So
go with the motor, so it's
It's
similar
gonna
to
be
like,
soft close.
yeah, it's similar to a garage door at home. It's not like the old style where you yank them down and they.
As long as they continue to work properly.
Yeah.
You talked about the runoff water, and we do have flooding problems, so I mean, you're taking away green space that used to suck up some water, that now it's going on to Mansion, it's going on into everywhere. We do have a water problem. Also, I talked to Rob about this earlier, there's a stop sign that needs to be put in at the end of Mansion. Because, and if you guys are blocking sight view to go to Hartford Street, and there was a school traffic is like insane, if nobody's done a traffic survey at all with the school and the fact that half the kids are getting like carded in and not busted anymore, you should see the traffic. So all the parents are coming in, picking up their kids, besides, there's hardly that many buses anymore.
Ma'am, do you mean going east or northbound on Marchant Street at the intersection of Hartford?
Yes,
Okay.
that, there needs to be a stop sign at that, because I see too many close calls and too many accidents that I normally run out to anyway and have to calm the kids down or the person down and call 911. Because there's no, that I'm seeing that, so.
To that, would you mind if I just cut you off for one thing with that? So regarding the stop sign on Mansion Street, I think I mentioned when we were
Yeah.
talking about it was a very good idea. And one thing that we can do, just so it's not held up with this process, not saying that this might, I don't know how long the process is gonna take, but we do have a traffic safety committee in town, and this is like a prime example of something that they can implement, and, the town can easily put in a stop sign and put the markings in.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, I think these guys would leave a complaint about
Or
that.
make Mansion Street one way.
At
especially
the safety
with the-
Not at the safety meeting, but I have contacted people at the DPW. I've had to drive people home from pedestrians that have walked down Mansion Street because a lady broke her ankle.
Sure.
Another
yeah.
person got injured. I mean,
Yeah.
that road.
The
not even a
potholes on that road are atrocious.
So,
Yeah, but that's.
yeah, we're getting a little bit off
Yeah,
topic from
sorry,
the
sorry,
application,
yeah.
but
But
to
this
the,
is part of the development.
yeah, but to
right?
the stop sign discussion, let me see what I can, because if there is a reason why there wasn't one put there, I don't know, but it's a little bit above my pay grade. I'm not a
People turn.
safety
left off
expert,
Union
but
Street and gun it.
Yep.
It's like a drag strip,
I'm,
So,
all hours of the night.
yeah,
so to get back to this situation, I mean,
But that's-
if you can't see past what they're putting up,
no,
because right now they have somewhat of a sight line.
Yep.
Because we talked about it, I mean, everybody rolls through that stop sign at Harvard Street, everybody, so. And if you have even less of a sight view for that, you're gonna cause a lot more trouble. Now, I'm all for you guys putting back shrubbery, but I also want a fence. I want you guys to have an 8-foot privacy fence along with the shrubbery around that, because I don't wanna see it. That's the one view I have out my picture window is that lot. And when you guys destroyed all the trees, and now it's, that's kind of,
Can I just speak to that?
yeah.
I just, I hear what you're saying, but I would just like to state that, providing, an 8-foot privacy fence and creating a blind spot at the corner are
I know, the
are
same thing,
the same thing, so,
Right.
I just,
but you guys.
because of where the stormwater needs to be on this site, I couldn't create a fence that would cut diagonally, that would allow a sight distance and provide a fence. I feel like those are, you know, and usually you try not to put things within like a 20-foot corner of, on intersections and things like of that nature. So I just feel like, you know, we're obviously willing to work with the neighborhood and everything, but I just, as of right now, that request seems like they're directly fighting against each other.
Right, all right, but with that said also, the trash, and don't tell me you're gonna collect all the trash. I already picked up enough trash off of Harper Street. I haven't done it this year yet, but there's bags and bags of large green garbage bags of trash that we go around and collect. And now you can't tell me that your shop isn't gonna cause trash.
We have a dumpster location on the site
And that's
and,
gonna
and
blow away in the big wind.
well, we have an operation and maintenance plan, for the site and a long-term pollution prevention plan for the site, because we're required to by regulations that, are submitted in with the stormwater report. And part of the long-term pollution prevention plan, is good housekeeping. Part of the good housekeeping is keeping a clean site and things of that nature, which is submitted with the documentation that we provided, like I said, in the stormwater report. So there will be documents that are filed with the board that they'll have that say that we're gonna do certain things, and if we're not, then, you know, there's means to hold us accountable.
Your trash issue maybe
not gonna be there.
void because the lot's gonna be occupied. There's so much trash there because it was vacant for so long.
Oh, it's
all
There
over.
were needles and
Oh, wait,
everything.
no.
Yeah, people are throwing crap out the window and, you know, it just blows down the street and then it lands on an empty lot, you know,
Excuse me
it's there to
for a
clean it up.
Lot of people talking, but just this is a great conversation, and I just want to kind of keep this moving for you guys to take notes. So
Yep.
one item about the, you know, the trash. Great that you have an on-site dumpster, and I think you have a dumpster enclosure proposed, correct?
It's on the.
I'm, you know what, I'm not sure that it's enclosed, if you need it enclosed, it could be enclosed.
I would do it enclosed, so there isn't
Yep.
the issue. And
Yep.
I know that it's gonna be on a pad anyway. that's-
Yeah, I have it on a pad, yeah.
So do the enclosure, so that way you're not having the issue of trash, you know, if the dumpster gets full, it's not gonna blow away.
Understood.
So that's one of the items. And then just to add to the whole screening discussion, this is great that we're discussing this, and I think, you know, we just received the landscape plan earlier. I mean, it's up on the screen. We really can't issue much comments. I haven't really had a chance to review it. But to the point of fencing and screening and stuff, I think that there's simple ways to do what you want with a fence and make sure that there's adequate site distances at Mansion Street and Harpin Street. So what comment received and note taken,
Mhm.
and I think that there's simple ways to get the technical items figured out to make sure.
I just want I want the noise level, because cutting down all the trees last summer, ooh, what a lovely summer I had in my yard, you know? And the times that you started, like, if you're gonna grind those stumps on a Saturday, like you were doing some of the trees before, can we make, can we make it a little bit later? You know,
Or do it during the week.
yeah, try doing
Work
the
hours.
Do you
Yeah,
guys
no, it's-
do certain hours? Is that like part of what you guys typically do?
We do.
And hours will be discussed.
Yeah, we do, which I know your business hours were in your narrative, which is, what is it, Monday through Friday?
8 to 5? I'd say 8 to 5, yeah.
8 to 5, so, which is good. I know usually, you know, things that abut the residential districts, usually it's a bit of a fight when we start having weekend hours or late nights hours. But to that point, we can discuss construction hours too, to make sure that noises is mitigated for the residents.
One more thing to go along with
I
that.
just want another person's question behind you.
Yes,
Just want to make sure we don't miss it.
I've lived on
Can you state your name, please?
Susan Pinocci. I live at 71 Archer Street. I've lived there since 1954. I know all the flooding, I know all the trash, I know all the traffic. And I'll tell you one thing, that type of business does not belong at that location. Period.
Thank you.
I would like to add to that. I've been there probably longer than anybody.
Your name, ma'am?
Mrs. Thomas, Joanne Thomas.
Thank
And
you.
I live on Harpin Street. And I moved there because it was a nice, friendly, family you know, the park and the kids and walkers and dog walkers and everybody.
And we still have a lot of those.
Lots and lots, and traffic, I mean, when all the baseball fields are going crazy and, you know, school and all of that stuff. And I just feel bad because it's gonna have the business, I mean, we're gonna get the gas station over there, put the business somewhere else, you know, find another plot somewhere. That's my feeling, but.
Thank you.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm Cindy Booth, I live right behind, I met you over the summer,
Yeah, yeah.
doing some trees. I just have some questions about this thing, the bio retention basin, what is that retaining?
What?
That's just for water.
Not at
Okay,
all.
what are you gonna be doing with the, what is your,
Where the
your
where our
renter.
car's gonna go?
the person's gonna be on site, gonna be doing with the biohazard, with the waste? It's not gonna be going into the septic or
No,
or
there's a-
leaching fields.
We've coordinated with the plumbing inspector. There's a trench drain located at the front of every single one of the garage bays. Doors, the garage itself is pitched down to that trench drain. The trench drain's then routed through an oil and gas separator.
Okay,
That
yeah, I see
oil and
that.
gas separator is then routed through a tight tank that has an alarm system in it to let you know when it's getting full. And when the alarm goes off, a hazardous waste pump
Then
contractor
come-
shows up, pumps the stuff out of there until it's dry, and then so
Much
on
like
and
they
so
do
forth.
with a pizza place and they put the oil in the thing, somebody.
But
comes
yes,
to-
but this is for cops.
Yeah, that's if there's like an accidental spill, what he's referring to, but the normal waste oil, let's say, they collect that.
They collect it on a regular basis.
Yeah, yeah. they have a
And
company.
how many of those companies do you have
Which companies?
for coming to collect the waste? Because I used to work for an environmental company, and you need more than one company to be as a backup when the other company can't come. So just something as a thought, so.
Yeah, I mean, some
Right.
of them, yeah, so.
Okay, what's the other question? Because Nick couldn't be here, he called me at 5 o'clock and said, you've got to go, and I'm like, what? He has pneumonia, you don't want him here tonight. He was concerned with visibility because he's got small kids. He only has a 3-foot fence. I have a 6-foot fence. And I'm not concerned with people peering over a fence.
Oh, so you, the green fence in the back?
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
He's the shorter fence in the
Yeah,
front?
he's actually on South Main Street.
I had written in my narrative, and I had included in the landscape plan, that a lot of the plantings are actually located in front of his property because you do have a completely
Yeah.
like, so, and because where the retaining wall is and where your fence is a short area anyways.
Yeah.
Putting trees in there just to say I have more trees in the site really doesn't do me
Doesn't make
anything.
it, no.
So, a lot of the screening is along his fence line because he's got the lower see-through fence, whereas you have the higher screen fence.
Right.
So I did take that into
I
consideration.
had a 6-foot fence, but I put the privacy screening on it.
Yeah.
When everything came down, because I'm like, I come home at night and I just want to sit down and not see anything.
Yeah. Understood.
So, so that, okay, you're taking care of the waste, so there's no really environmental impact on what comes out of the transmission company. Unless there was got to be a spill, like
Yeah, I mean, the spill, the state has.
that.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. You next.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Stacy Jan Gregorio, 100 Man Street. I live on the corner. So I have several concerns. I mean, obviously, first off, it's gonna start off as a brand new building. Is it gonna end up looking like the shop that was down near, where Sandy's Ice Cream was, Urban Automotive? Where we have tons and tons of cars that are sitting there. It looks like crap, pardon me.
Just to clarify,
Sure.
you're referring to the brick building? Yeah,
That they
Yep.
blacked out all the windows in now.
Yeah, that's a whole other zoning enforcement issue that I'm not gonna go into.
But before
Yeah.
that was, whatever it is now, it was automotive, and everybody here, I see you shaking your heads because you all have seen it.
I drove.
And it's a shame to see it.
What I can tell you on that is, my tenants that are going there, they're, Tamco Transmission, you probably heard of them. They have about 600 stores nationwide. They are privately owned franchises. I currently rent a location to them in Norton, Massachusetts. Feel free to drive by there.
How long have they been there?
At the Norton location. I bought that, last year in September, so they started, last December, so their lease has been a little over a year now, so.
Okay, so I mean, it really hasn't been that long, so it's still time for them to have it looking decent. You know, because I'm just looking at the way you took the trees down.
Yeah, so,
And that to me was a complete, like, I don't know how you guys survived. I
Yeah.
really don't. Like, there were days that I was like, I had 911 on my phone because I was like, this is where it ends.
yeah, no, so, I mean, as far as going back to, Emco transmission, not only do they have to kind of abide by, whatever rules we put for them, put forward for them, but they also have to maintain, Amco's policies, and Amco is very, very strict. And that's the reason that I actually chose them for the other location. I mean, I had probably 50 people, that were interested in renting the other property. And I chose them because of that, all the safeguards they have in place. Anywhere from their lifts, like, I don't even want somebody getting hurt on the property, right? Even if it's not, my business. I mean, I don't want somebody getting hurt on the property, so, I went through all the regulations and requirements that AMCO holds their people under, so it was, I mean, that was good for me. I mean, so I know how they maintain the other property, they keep up with it very well. I go by there several times a month. Just to check up on them, check in, and there's a property next door that I check up on. And they've always had the place clean. I've never seen any litter out. I've never seen they have company come and dump the dumpster every 2 weeks. I've never seen the dumpster full. I've never seen the dumpster half full. And I've used it several times, so that I can tell you about them, so. And it's gonna be the same owner opening up this location. It's two women that own it, and they're opening up another location, so.
So then cars will only be allowed to be in your parking lot. They're not gonna be allowed on the streets and being parked out along our
Good.
residential roads and whatnot. Cause I mean, we already have a ton of traffic. Anytime there's a funeral, if they're huge, they're parking on
I've
our
seen the funeral
septic.
traffic. I've
They
been there for
are
that.
walking both sides of the road.
Yes,
I have safety concerns for residents. As I mentioned before, some, people have been hit by cars. That's a terrible intersection right there. All we have is flashing light. There's probably 20+ accidents a year right there. Then we now have the snack trail that's been redone, and there's a ton more foot traffic going there. People with little kids learning to ride their bikes going down that way. And so those are just huge concerns for me. How are we gonna mitigate any of that stuff? The school, along with that traffic that we've already talked about. How about, are there gonna be background checks done on employees to make sure that they don't have criminal or sexual like offenses and stuff like that, so that we're in compliance with that type of stuff?
those are all.
What is the depreciation of our homes going to be with this? Let's see what else I have. And I mean, I feel like there is some wetlands over there. I know we have the stream, like we said, on the one side of, Mansion Harpen over there. And you guys, there was supposed to be like, there's an underground stream that runs on the side that you guys have, from what we've been told. So I just want to know how all of that's going to be looked at and what's going to happen, because again, we already have enough water issues on the road. The road is washing away. Nothing's being done. So these are the concerns.
Very fair.
There is a high water table, and we did testing this summer.
It was
a drought.
Yeah,
I've never seen it so dry.
We don't, yeah, but we don't, testing was witnessed, and we don't base our, where groundwater is based on where we see water. There's historic markings, based on rusting that gets left in the soils, based on the water being in there. So, the water doesn't necessarily need to be there for me to call water. I have test logs that show where I saw water and where I actually called water. There is quite a discrepancy between where water was seen and where water is called on a lot of the test pits.
And you do know that there was a filtration system that was pulled out of there about a year or so before you got the property, right?
Yeah, I think they can't cut the rest down
Okay,
because of the spill from the.
gas station.
Mhm.
Okay,
And we had them on, and we had them check samples of the soil too while they took it up,
Okay.
you know, it's just so we could take care of anything.
Yeah, we
Okay.
actually, during the testing, we had an LSP come out and take the soil back, that's included in our soil report that got submitted to the Board of Health and the stormwater report. They tested it for contaminants and it all came out good.
okay.
This is a franchise then?
The company I plan on putting in,
Yeah.
Info Transmission, yeah, they're franchise. And, you know, they specialize in transmissions, I mean, they probably have, you know, 1, 2 people go there a day at the most, it's not an auto repair, like a typical auto repair, we might have, you know, 10, 20 customers a day, I don't know. But they,
And I'm just curious, you said 2 women are gonna own this?
two, yeah, so currently the one in Norton that I have, it's 2 women that are partners.
Yeah.
I know Lisa, is definitely in on this one. I don't know if Michelle is gonna be, so it's gonna be either 1 or 2 women partners.
So, I'm just curious, do you know how long they've been franchisees?
Yes, so Lisa's been about 4 years. They were in North Attleboro prior to, they
On Route 1?
outgrew North Attleboro. They left the one route, yeah, they left there. And they had problems with the landlord over there. That was an old building. The landlord didn't want to put any money into it. And that's why they looked to get out of there. So they came over to my building. And, I mean, they've been so great in every which way, and, we kind of clicked, so they wanted another building. I said, I'll build you guys one, because I know they're gonna take care of it. You know, it's much easier for me to just buy a building and it's already a shop and put them in there, but I'm looking long-term, and, you know, they have, excuse me, their franchises, they run about 15 years. She has like 4 licenses, so she can do up to 4 stores. And I believe she has like 13 years left on the license that she's gonna use for this potential unit, so, you know. They want a 5-year, 5 lease, so they plan on being there long term too, so. You know,
They also run in the rental.
yeah, because they can't rent cars through Amco Transmission, that violates, you know, policies, and that's something that they would like to do. You know, if the car rental place is a big issue, like we said, we don't have a problem removing that. I mean, I just thought it'd be good for them to, you know, have the opportunity to do something else that can help their business out, because I didn't see any other local rental companies, and, you know, if somebody goes in with a broken car and they need a way to get out of there, I mean, it helps their customers out too, so.
Is it gonna be just limited? I know we talked just a little bit about it, but is it gonna be limited just to customers, or if so, you know, if I picked up the phone and said, hey, do you have a car for me?
Yeah, I mean, she could, but she's not trying to advertise that. For her, it's really, you know, so ultimately she has 4 licenses. She wants to do 4 stores. That 1 car rental place is gonna be enough to supply her 4 businesses. That's how she's looking at it. And she says, hey, if I have a rental company, I can just get a rental car to each one of my stores whenever they need it. And that's what she's looking at it from that perspective, you know, so.
So the site would be supplying rental cars to 4 other locations?
Well, right now it's just 1. She has 4 licenses. There'll be 1 location in Norton and then 1,
The idea is that she'd be like, this would be our company here in Bellingham.
yeah, so she would say like, if there's a car broken in Norton, she'll just drive it down to Norton from Bellingham and give it to the customer, and the customer would, you know, that's what she's hoping to do, you know, so it's a convenience for all our customers.
Okay, when I heard that, I agree that having a convenience for your customers is really good.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that they were looking to supply other locations through the one sitting in Bellingham, so
Yeah,
Kind of like a distribution center too.
I mean, that's what kind of rental places are, distribution centers, right? So it's like, I mean, nowadays, if they'll come pick you up at your house, if you call up Hertz and say, hey, I'm broken down in my house, they'll drive somebody right to your house and pick you up. So, I mean, that's pretty standard. But, I mean, you know, I think for her, I don't think she'd even need to drive down from Bellingham to Norton, let's say, to pick somebody up. She can leave the cars at Norton as long as she has a business that allows her to rent these cars, right? For her, it'd make more sense to leave one car at Norton all the time, right? If somebody breaks down or needs a car, they can leave from Norton with it. She won't have to waste time to drive down, but she just can't do that through the Amco franchise. It needs to be a totally independent business, so there's no issues between Amco and the car rental place.
Okay, to me, it's a little different. The business models are a little different. It's a different.
Misleading?
No, I didn't use that word.
Okay,
It's a different
Perspective.
thing,
yeah,
having a car that, 2 or 3 cars on your lot that you rent out because your customers come in.
okay.
Versus, oh, I own 10 cars, some of
I
them are
gotcha.
there and there, but I'm renting them out, and my business is in Bellingham.
I
That's a
gotcha.
difference, that's
I
a
gotcha.
different business model.
That's where you use the parking calculation, like I mentioned previously. to
Yeah.
restrict,
But
Cause I
that's a-
understand where you're getting at.
Well, it's
and
a
that's-
different business use,
Yeah.
Yeah,
use table?
no,
No?
no.
Okay. Anyways, well, I'm sure we'll go
Okay.
down that path when the time comes.
One last question, you guys are gonna be able to talk on this thing. Gentleman in the back.
Yes, Dick Panochi, I'm at 71 Archer Street in Bellingham. And I've been there for 50 years, which doesn't make any difference, but I'm just curious. My father owned the gas station in Woonsocket for 50 years. At any given point, he had a lot of cars that needed work. How many cars are we gonna have here at this small location? You're either gonna be in the front or the side.
Just,
Or on the street.
hold on, just for clarification, when you say cars that are gonna be on the site, are you referring to cars parked on the site, is what you're saying, correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so-
I mean, we're gonna end up with a used car lot here.
Yes, we are.
That's what I'm concerned with. I mean, how many designated parking spots do we have on this property?
There's 16 parking spaces total.
Yeah. 4 more cars could probably step in there.
No, I'm just curious, because I mean, I know at times what it looked like in my father's place when he got busy. He had cars all over the place, and he had a big lot.
Fair enough. Just one more
Okay,
comment.
ma'am.
If you think
Ma'am.
about all the different garages in town and think about which ones you think look the nicest. You know what I mean? Like, look at Charlie's. Charlie's Tires, I'm sorry, is very well maintained. But then you can go to some of the other ones around town, and I don't see any laws being enforced on the ones that look like junk. So this is, and they're promising that Amco is gonna take, but they're independently owned. It's not just, and yeah, okay, maybe an inspector from Amco is gonna come through. Doesn't mean that's gonna fix the problem. And my last comment, would you guys want this next to your house? That's, would you want it built within 100 feet of your house? In a residential area?
I think that'd be a good place to end the public discussion.
All right, so.
What's the next step?
So I guess the next step would be to initiate the third-party peer review for the stormwater side of things. And then that way, once those comments get back, you can implement changes from the peer review as well as comments from the public to implement to try and get some solutions in place for this. So with that, what's today, December 12th, I can get the peer review proposal hopefully by the end of next week. And hopefully they can get this done. I'm just gonna say, a month tops to get a peer review back. Which I guess the question would be, from your perspective, would you want to come back after the peer review is submitted, or do you want to come back once the peer review is submitted and you have a chance to revise and resubmit? Which I think the latter would be more productive, because we don't want to have a zillion meetings. I know people are busy around the holidays. I know they want to be involved for this process, so what I would recommend is to push this either to the second meeting in January or the first meeting in February to get this rolling. Probably the second or the first meeting in February would allow you guys to resubmit, and we can talk about stuff at that meeting. Decisions.
That'd be the 13th.
The look of contemplations.
I can't, I don't disagree with the process. Me coming back in front of you without a peer review and a revised plan doesn't get me anywhere.
Yeah.
So.
I'm being conservative. I can try and expedite the peer review as quick as possible. But
Yeah,
want to
I
give you
guess
time to.
I'm gonna speak for my applicant here and, anything to do to get in, earlier is gonna be helpful for us from a permitting standpoint. I understand the peer review needs time to do peer reviews. I do peer reviews myself. I understand.
Yep.
But whenever we could get those comments, it would be great. And so I could review and respond accordingly.
So if we do the February 13th, I have the continuance just requested you could sign it. I'll put February 13th on here, and then we'll extend the deadline to the end of February just for the decision while we work out everything. Okay, that works.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah,
That much.
if that's okay with the board.
It is, I was in.
One question, the traffic peer review, that, I think that would be valuable for this site with the location.
Well, so the
What
traffic,
would they review? There's a driveway, there's sight lines.
so a traffic study is warranted, I believe it's 20 trips per day, or 20 trips per peak hour, which this site, I don't believe would trigger that by any means, but as part of the civil peer review, what I would recommend doing is I feel like the site distances are gonna be okay, but as the comments were brought up again, where Harpin Street and Mansion Street are, that's a simple thing that part of our civil peer review can look at, and I think that we can take care of those aspects in that. I know, like, usually for the traffic peer reviews, you get the calculations for the traffic as well as the modeling and the off-site mitigation. This is not one of those projects that would trigger that review per our bylaws. But like I said, there are aspects, safety aspects that can be looked at, so that can be looked at. I can include that in the scope.
Okay, I would look, yeah, I don't know, the rest of the board feels good, I think we ought to.
Okay.
Well, just because of the
You have
location
a
of
map
where
on?
this is, with the schools and all that stuff. Rob is suggesting we do not do a full traffic study, okay, but there's some things we probably want to look at that he just mentioned, so
So site
he's
distance.
comfortable with,
Yeah,
he's comfortable with not doing the peer review.
Yeah,
It's
I
good
mean,
enough for me.
yeah,
for
okay.
Traffic.
it would be there are the elements in the peer review regarding the site civil aspect.
Mhm.
And what I'm just referring to is you have the traffic engineers that review modeling and that sort of aspect, which
Yep.
this isn't that kind of application,
I would agree.
which it wouldn't be the traffic peer review, but the elements that were discussed tonight regarding site distances and the safety and circulation, that will be part of the peer review that with the site civil and stormwater. So,
Can I add one thing?
You
You heard a
have
lot
to.
from the public.
that was a joke.
You try to get a response back to them by the 23rd. And also at some point, you may want to think of a sit down with the neighbors so they can articulate their concerns outside of a meeting of this type. So it can make this meeting a little more productive. I know I said no more questions, man, but give a simple, quick question.
It has to do with the traffic on 126, and I know people are gonna be stopping because they're gonna miss the entrance. And there needs to be no parking signs put up all over the place so they don't stop, because that's gonna cause so many accidents.
It's already enough traffic.
Yeah, there's already so much traffic and you guys have your opening on 126. You know what I mean?
So they'll
There's,
take their turn on to Harper and then turn on to Manson
That's what I was
and go around the block.
yeah, but you know what I mean? There's just so many traffic issues right there.
And the cars will be, towed into that, garage, won't they?
Yes, a lot of times cars will
Okay,
be.
there
towed.
we go.
And you're,
Look at up the street from Charlie Tire, that garage, there's always backing up, turning around, it's terrible, it's awful. And we got a mess on Arthur Street, on South Main in that area anyway.
Is there enough space for somebody to take a tow truck in your driveway and turn it around inside and come back out, not have to back up onto South Main Street?
You're not allowed to back up out of a site anyway. Like, that's one of the things with the traffic. I mean, not traffic, the
You
truck.
can see some of the drivers, they do it all.
Oh, I know what you mean, and that's where I know a lot
That's
of.
why I asked. if there
So
was
for
enough.
them to actually, because the vehicle is on the back of the tow truck, they actually have to turn it around and back it into the space. Otherwise, they can't offload it, so they'll be turning around in there and then driving.
And then
the
drive
load
it
out
straight,
there.
they drive straight in, drive straight out.
Yeah, yeah,
That-
because,
that
yeah, because if they
alleviates
pull
a
into
lot
the
of
space and they
problems
can't drop the
on
car
Main
off,
Street.
you know, so they'll have to turn around in there and drop the car off and then
That makes sense.
drive out. Yeah.
but so
To the
this is
public,
basically a done deal, right? This is
The
what
public, I
we're,
want to thank you for all your comments.
Done deal.
yeah, it's like,
No.
No,
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 because it sounds like it's done, you know what I mean? Like,
no, they're moving.
They're moving forward.
Yeah, we have to move forward.
I know you said that to me earlier
Yeah.
today, but I mean, it doesn't sound like you guys ever say no to anything.
Ma'am,
So I'm a
Excuse
little nervous,
ma'am,
like even,
I'm sorry. I've asked you last question several times.
sorry,
You
sorry.
keep raising your hand, interrupting other people. The Senators board never says no. At the first meeting we've ever had on a topic, I'm gonna get myself, it's a little rich, okay? This is the first time we've heard about this. We are walking through the process. We're encouraging the applicant to meet with you. We've listened to all your questions. We've taken time to listen to your questions. I've called on you several times.
Thank you.
Request, we can-
We just want to work through this process. For us to say no now. Again, I'm gonna use the words a little rich.
One of the questions that-
No, I just didn't know because I haven't, this is only my second town hall meeting and it just seems like everything seems to get worked through, but it's like, well, what's the end?
Procedure?
Yeah, what's the procedure? Like what, I mean,
That will
Rob
be
told me
outlined as we
something.
go through this process.
Yeah, I don't think you meant,
February.
I don't think you meant to be offensive
No,
by any
not
means.
at all. It's just that it seems like everything's getting worked through where we could save them a lot of money because it's their money. And if we just said it wouldn't happen, you know what I mean? This is why I'm like, well, why make these poor people spend more money if, if we decide it's not gonna happen?
And they have a right during this process, if they want to close the public hearing and have us vote on, not me, but the board vote on this.
Yeah.
You know, they have every right to do. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
So,
Thank
but
you very much.
there's a process in place, but we can talk about it more. You got my card.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Perfect.
You got.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Have a second.
I'll second that.
The motion on the floor to,
We're gonna end up with you, Kyle, out of
And
it.
is that-
Are you guys okay?
Is it not realistic to do the 29th?
February 13th. All in favor?
I would they're not February
July.
13th, just to give you the time. Okay, it's gonna be.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next meeting will be Thursday, second Thursday of the month, February 13th. Ma'am, thank you for all your questions, and thank you for writing them down ahead of time.
Meet with me after.
Sure, thank you.
I got the contact.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you're gonna have discussions outside, please keep it away from the doors.
Okay, Bill.
Rob, the next
How are you
item-
doing? I didn't bring my pillow. All right.
Continuation of the public hearing on definitive subdivision fair at Maple Street.
Yeah,
I believe there's some documents we need to review.
yeah, so based on the last meeting.
Thank you, ma'am.
I know Mike Dryden is here. I'm gonna pull
I'm
up.
not being rude, I just wanted to like,
I understand.
being there for so long.
I know, man. I don't live far away.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
We'll talk to you later.
Yep. Let me just share the screen. So I drafted the decision for this 306 Maple Street based on our last conversation, and as we mentioned in the previous hearing, if I can pull this up. You know, this is really just a process for the zone freeze, which with that, you'll see the decision. I've really tried to make it extremely clear in the decision that that's exactly what this is. And like as in the determinations, it's stated, number one, you know, that, you know, during the process on November 14th, this was really pertaining to the zone freeze, and that the applicant did state that there was no intention to build this. It was really to preserve their right to construct previously approved warehouse, and if they elect to move forward, there's still a process in place. That might help you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's number one. And then also in the determinations, there's just some items in here just stating that the development plan approval process is still valid and needs to be in place prior to really moving forward with anything. Where things are a bit different for this, and mind you, this has been vetted through town council. It's the general conditions, which is prior to construction. There's quite a few items that they're typically not included in something like this, because typically a development plan approval is done during the definitive subdivision process. In this case, you don't have to do it. It's obviously more cost effective if you're going to be building something to do it, but this is where the conditions in place really, really make that clear that you need to follow that process in order to construct what you're approving. Additionally, there's conditions in here that to coordinate required submittals with myself, the building commissioner, and the fire chief. They need to coordinate the public safety access and egress for any proposed buildings associated with this, if this were to get built with the with public safety. The soil test information needs to be provided in accordance with our bylaw. And then also approvals need to be in place with the Board of Health. Additionally, there's just a catch-all item number 6, which is regarding additional permitting, which is associated with the use criteria in our use table. So, for example, if there's a special permit that's needed for a use, you know, that's also kind of part of the development plan approval process, but it's specifically stated in these conditions. The rest of the items are really, I don't want to call them boilerplate, but they are when it comes to certain aspects of our definitive subdivision plans. I mean, this is really just a catch-all info regarding phases of construction, which there's only one phase if this were to occur. Commencement of construction prior to plan endorsement. I think that's for surety or security, which would be required. All of these things, there's also the SWIP requirement too, for prior to construction. You know, really just boilerplate items. That's pretty much it. So like I said, really the main purpose of this is to make sure that the decision is clear, that, you know, you are approving the merits of the subdivision itself. There's no intent for it to be built. And I think the main concern is that the board wouldn't want to approve something that hasn't been fully vetted, which is really the development plan approval process that comes into play, because the definitive subdivision process is really just a zoning exercise. So this just covers the board.
This is the plan that has just the cul-de-sac basically on it, right?
Correct. If you want me to pull.
And you call that out in number 5 at the beginning, right?
Yeah, that's
So-
it for the associated documents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in the interest of time, we all know that this isn't being built and they're have no intention of building it. And this is all, like you said, an academic exercise. I think Rob has, in this decision has looked out and, has really done as comprehensive as possible to protect the town in the event that this crazy project would ever be constructed. I think this is a good decision submitted by town council. With all that said, I move to approve this decision as written.
Number second,
Is that a compliment?
No.
It must be, it must be late.
Could I just interject before you make any formal votes? Because I'm just reading this for the first time. I certainly would love to walk out of here this evening with an approval. That's obviously the goal. I do have a couple of questions I just want to work through. Of course, we've all acknowledged that this is a procedural matter. We're only here to free zoning. There's no intention to build that plan. Having said that, we, from a legal standpoint, need to make sure that this filing is perfected and it's 100% bulletproof and it's not subject to appeal. So that's where my concerns lie right now. And let me just elaborate a little bit on that. Rob and I had a back and forth prior to this filing, and there was some sort of gray area associated with a few items that would need to be otherwise submitted with a definitive subdivision. For example, a traffic analysis. In one part of the regulations, it says definitive subdivision shall include a traffic analysis. In chapter, whatever the chapter is for traffic, it's that standalone chapter.
Yeah.
There's a threshold for an analysis. This project would never come close to that threshold. So where I'm going is, if there's any ambiguity or doubt that we need to formally request waivers, I would rather wait for the next meeting and get that formal list of waivers in place. And again, I gave you the example of traffic. Upon additional reflection about this, I just want to make sure no one can come in and say, well, they didn't request a waiver for a traffic analysis. So if you understand where I'm going, I would love to leave here with an approval, but I think it would make more sense to wait 4 weeks for me to submit, which I already drafted and went through with you on the phone at one point. A list of, I think, 4 waivers. Just to make this official, get it on the cover sheet. So that the plans that you endorse have those official waiver requests in place.
Can I ask what those waivers are?
Sure.
Because I'd be reluctant to give you any waivers. I'm more likely, and this is one board member, I'd be more likely to have Rob tweak if it was gonna be something that we were concerned about, to tweak the language as opposed to, we're waiving this, we're waiving that.
I certainly understand your point.
I'd rather not waive anything.
These
I'd rather
aren't
put like-
dimensional waivers.
That's what I'm
In other
asking.
words,
That's why I'm
right,
asking.
yep, and it's a valid question. I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm not saying that the roadway is too steep. It exceeds your maximum grade. The nature of the waivers are for a traffic analysis. You already received and reviewed a 60,000 square foot warehouse, which is twice the size that as any development could be placed here. So inherently, the traffic is much less than that. So, and we've already made it clear that there's no intention to build this project. So to go through a traffic analysis would be an exercise in futility, in my respectful opinion.
Could I butt in just for 1 second? 'Cause
Sure.
I know it's getting really late. We got another application, same application, actually. So to that point with the traffic analysis. The traffic analysis is triggered in the criteria for the development plan approval, believe it or not. It says that you're required to have them for the definitive subdivision, but the actual guidance for it is in the definitive
Correct.
subdivision in the development plan approval. Now, all your comments extremely valid, and I think it is my fault. I actually meant to send this to the applicant because this is a very odd situation. I apologize, Mike. I was not trying to be cute.
That's quite all
with
right.
this. Been kind of busy with town meeting and stuff, but I would recommend we can talk, I would just continue this to, the January 9th meeting,
Okay.
and what I will do is I will send you the continuation request tomorrow with the decision deadline. I think we're okay. But we're gonna get the extension anyway. I'll send it to the end of, just the end of January, because that's
Okay.
what we're doing now.
Great.
But I would recommend, because it's late, we don't really want to get to the back and forth, especially since I know you guys have reviewed the application. I think it'd be best to, we can get this worked out.
Yeah, okay.
What do you want?
Not at 10:19.
I just want to circle back to your comment and make sure that the board understands, these are not dimensional waivers, it's only procedural traffic. You had brought up a couple of elements of the environmental analysis that weren't technically included. It's not as if this project couldn't be built in this form, it's just, again, we don't intend to build it, so why go through the expense of a traffic analysis? I think you know what I'm
And
saying.
perhaps there can be a way of saying that based upon prior to building this, you do this, this, and this. And I would
And-
leave that in Rob's capable.
Yeah,
hands.
okay.
And they are, like, I know one of the environmental impacts is regarding like the Board of Health requirements, which is why the condition about just coordination with the Board of Health. I think we're
Yeah.
all, I think we're all.
I
good,
think it's
but-
all covered, it's just a matter of,
Just
did we
review it.
provide everything that is technically required to be part of a filing of a definitive subdivision? We want to perfect.
want to come back?
I'm sorry?
When do you want to come
The next meeting, I think we can easily,
January.
I already have this list of waivers drafted, I just need to send it.
Yep.
So I move to continue the hearing until
January 9th.
January 9th and.
And-
To accept the request to extend his, this is.
Yeah, to January
Technically,
31st.
that's to be two separate. Is that one motion?
I'll do one motion, it's fine.
Do anything to your original.
It dies on.
Second?
I'll second that, Nick.
Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Go on.
Built by nine.
Steve, I.
Okay.
Thank you
Excellent.
very much.
We'll
Thank you.
chat next week.
Yes,
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mike.
you. Have a good night, all.
This is the new public hearing. because it's on.
Move to waive the reading of the public notice.
What a guy.
I don't think they have it read.
I made a motion. Within 30 seconds, or so we'll talk about it.
I can read it.
Read it.
You really want it read?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
Okay.
Why?
The applicant WS Bellingham Associates LLC proposes a 2-lot commercial subdivision on approximately 179.9 plus or minus acres of land on Hartford Avenue in Bellingham, shown on Assessor's Map 24-10-00 and 24-12-00 and 24-16-00, 30-73 -01 and 31-03-00 with portion zoned industrial, business 2 and suburban. The property owners are as follows. Parcel 24-10-00, Hartford Ave Associates LTD PTS. Parcel 24-12-00, Bellingham North Main Street 2 LLC. Parcel 24-16-00, Bellingham North Main Street 2 LLC. Parcel 30-73-01, WS Bellingham Associates LLC. Parcel 31-03-00, Barney Brothers Sand and Gravel. The plans were prepared by Bowler at 352 Turnpike Road, Southborough, Massachusetts, 01772, entitled Definitive Subdivision Plan, Hartford Avenue, dated October 24th, 2024.
Move to open the public hearing.
Second that.
Motion to floor open the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, aye.
Built by nine.
Steve, I.
That motion passes unanimously. Rob, you're pretty up to speed here?
Yeah, I'll make this very quick.
Please.
This is another same situation as 306 Maple Street where this is an effort to free zoning for a previously approved warehouse. The application or the plan itself is very similar to what we've already seen, in the preliminary subdivision phase of the project. With that, if the applicant has anything else to add, I will just let everybody know, it was not in your drop boxes, but in an effort to be proactive, and if you want to discuss it tonight, if not, I'll send it to you tomorrow. I did draft a decision for this, an approval, very similar to 306 Maple Street. Unlike 306 Maple Street, I shouldn't laugh, it's not nice, but Jeff and I did talk, we have a decision that was meshed out, which pretty much it was my decision that I wrote, and there was just a couple things like capitalizing applicant and wordsmithing that Jeff Curley is known for.
And, yeah,
So-
in Rob's defense, I hounded him, so maybe Mike didn't, but, Jeff Curley for the applicant, WS Development. I would say we are perfectly in alignment with the preliminary subdivision plan you approved back, or saw back in April, approved back in May. The nature of the waivers, Phil, to your point, and I think what Mike missed, they're submission requirements that we're seeking waivers from. We did enumerate them in the cover letter that we submitted back on October 24th. That's the traffic report and other things that are also required of a development plan submission, which, to Rob's point, for conditioning the approval to require a development plan approval if we ever pursue anything here, all of those submission requirements would then be required of us in connection with that development plan approval. If that makes sense. We're not seeking physical or dimensional or building height or any of those kinds of waivers. These are waivers specific to submission requirements associated with the development plan approval. We've met all the submission requirements for the definitive subdivision approval. Excuse me, approval.
So,
And
so a waiver for traffic study on Hartford Avenue, how do we put that in it? How do we
Put it in the body.
How do we put it in the body of the decision that we don't need to do a waiver for a traffic study on Hartford Avenue?
So,
Because we've done it already.
yeah, and to that point, that's where this decision is a little bit different than 306's, because similar to 306's, they also, a lot of the decisions are in place similar to, for example, the traffic study, as I
Okay.
mentioned before. With the definitive subdivision plan, it's a submission requirement to have a traffic study, but there's no approval criteria for it. It's just you have to have it. The approval criteria is within the development plan approval. That's where it is specifically stated that there's a level of service that you have to meet. You can't decrease offsite. There's specific traffic count, that sort of stuff is in the development plan approval, which is why it's specifically stated in the decision, development plan approval is required prior to construction.
We
That-
should include a traffic study.
Absolutely. There is nothing in there saying that a traffic study is waived. Nothing.
I don't.
So that's,
So we're not asking for a waiver on traffic study.
no,
I just, finer point, but.
Yeah.
It's just,
no, that is.
we're
the
not
traffic-
asking for a waiver on
if This
that.
gets constructed,
I
traffic-
don't want to, I know it's not gonna be.
Yeah.
We have a traffic,
I'm a little.
So
please.
there's no decision before us, so we don't have to, I don't want to belabor a point.
Okay.
So do we even have it here?
No, I didn't submit it because you didn't ask me specifically to draft it. I was just trying to be proactive, so I figured what I was going to do. It's 10:30 tonight. I know it's late. You probably don't want to go through it tonight, and I think the applicant is okay if you review it before the January 9th meeting. If we continue this, and if you have comments, please reach out. We can discuss. Because, the intent here isn't to push this. That's not it. And, and the applicant, I think, is in complete agreement that it's not to push this through. So why don't we do January 9th? I will send this to you where you don't have to wait, the Friday before the meeting. to review this. I'll send it to you now, tomorrow when I'm in the office.
Okay.
You can see it. And we can discuss it at the January 9th meeting. I would recommend reaching out before January 9th, so if there's decisions that you want implemented and stuff, I can go through it and talk, town council if they need to be involved. We'll be proactive, okay?
I agree. Can we try to have comments back to you by, let's say, the 22nd of December,
Yeah,
thereabouts?
yeah, December 25th. I'll be in.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, so there's need a motion on the floor.
Yeah, move to continue to January 9th.
Second,
Second, Nick,
any discussion? Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Friday.
Go on.
we don't need a deadline.
One caveat, sir.
Yep. Yes, sir.
We'll try to have you first on the agenda. Been a long day here for you.
I promise you it was very entertaining, but thank you.
Thank you for your patience. A little,
Chicken twisted, I get it.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
thank you for your patience.
John was beginning and end tonight, so he
Yeah.
gets the prize.
I know. You're the bookends of the evening.
I bring people.
Apparently.
I bring people.
If we all understand, select the minutes from the 14th meeting.
Have a good night.
Happy holidays, guys. Happy holidays.
Second, Bill.
We'll be in
You'll
touch.
need to unlock your iPad.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes as written.
Nick, I.
Discussion now, call for the vote.
Right.
Go on.
Bill,
Harmony Village, phase 7 lot release.
All right, so this one very quickly, this is the next phase for the lot releases. We've been working with them quite a bit the last few months to finalize a few items that they have. We're in good shape though, as far as surety goes. They're actually gonna be requesting a reduction in surety because they have actually a pretty significant amount of roadway that's actually complete, and DPW's been inspecting. I don't know if you've driven through Harmony, but it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it
It's come
is.
together nicely. With that, this is not the last release, but we're getting to the end here, and I will tell you that one thing to note coming forward is that if you recall with the decision, actually, this I think would be it might be a ZBA thing, but there are some off-site mitigation requirements on Cross Street regarding a sidewalk. I don't know if this rings any bells, but
It's somewhat up in the air.
it is, because what happened was the design was really more schematic than anything dating back a while ago. And now when we go out there, we realize that if the sidewalk were constructed, it would be a significant amount of land taking, number one. And number two, with the grading easements that would be required, it would wipe out like a lot of privacy for the neighbors on Cross Street. It would do more harm than good. So we've been working with the developer to come up with what exactly can be done on Cross Street, same, price for the mitigation. We're not gonna get shortchanged. But what are some more meaningful impacts? So they're gonna be in front of, I think it's ZBA that rendered the decision. I don't know if it was planning board, but I'm just letting you know that I know that has been questions in the past, and we're pretty much we're coming up to the final thing here for that. Cross Street's gonna get some pretty nice and well needed improvements. The developer's actually, in my opinion, going above and beyond to try and satisfy the town.
They've also addressed concerns of neighbors as well.
Correct. There's some drainage concerns that they're gonna be addressing too, which is excellent. Not really simple ones either, which they've been really good to deal with.
One annoying question, are they hitting their affordables, are they?
Yes, so we have a consultant that we use for affordable monitoring. I was actually on a call with her just this week to discuss getting those online, so they are. They
Being constructed and marketed.
correct. Yep, exactly.
And in case you're wondering, as you drive down the street, you can't.
Yeah.
They look
Are we
very
close?
similar.
Are we close to getting that back door open on Was it Cross Street, not Cross Street, what's the?
The access road that is open currently, and you can access from Cross Street. The houses aren't constructed all the way there. That's where their construction trailer is. Are you?
No, I
Yeah,
thought that was, it is open at this point.
it is open. You can access and go around that way. I've done it, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the one thing to note that you'll notice on that side, like, so there's a portion,
They have barrels and rope and,
yeah, that is their staging area for their materials and their construction trailers. So like when you look at it, you
Yeah.
wouldn't think that that's a road, but it is, it's on the binder course.
yeah,
I recommend if you want to see, you know, a pretty impressive subdivision and kind of see like how things go, more of a learning experience. Drive through there because you'll see the phases and you'll notice when you get to the final paved area with the stabilized loam and seed, sidewalks and berm. It's pretty cool, but they're doing a really good job. They're really good to work with, I have to say.
It looks great.
It does, you know, for what it is, they're doing a good job.
And the price point has changed since construction.
Yeah.
Dramatically.
So with that, what I would recommend is two votes. You can do it together, but one of the votes would be to release lots 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 97, 98, 99, and 103 along Clover Drive, Road D, from the covenant recorded at Norfolk District Registry of Deeds in book 40132, page 527. So moved.
Do I have a second?
second, Phil.
Motion on the floor made and seconded. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Friday.
Bill, I.
Bill,
Steve, aye. And the last vote would be to vote to accept the guarantee price estimates, which is in your packets for the Bellingham Shores Clover Drive of $255,000.
Everybody's happy with that?
Correct, yep, so I should have mentioned, that's reviewed and it's actually prepared by the DPW when they do the inspections. That's Chris Syriac's signature from the DPW, so they're the ones who prepare it, not the the developer, so.
Anything with Chris's signature on, I feel comfortable.
Chris is great.
He does a good job.
Yeah, we like Chris.
Second, Nick.
Motion on the floor is second to accept as outlined the Bellingham Shore Clover Drive releases. Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Friday.
Bill, I.
Bill,
Excellent.
Motion passes unanimously.
Motion to adjourn.
Any discussion?
second.
Nick, I.
Friday.
Bill, I.
Bill,
Steve, aye.
Or adjourn. Gentlemen.